Good afternoon and welcome to the May 7th, 2024 Mayor and Council Work Session and Special Session for the City of Hagerstown. This meeting is now called to order. And first up, we have a proclamation, Building Safety Month, and that'll be given by Councilmember Matthew Schindler to Paul Fry and
Paul. That's all right. I get Paul Fry's email all the time.
You just saw him, that's
you know, I gotta warm up. Y'all know this is part of my bloopers and warm ups, huh? I'm sorry.
getting out of the way early.
All right. So this is for Building Safety Month, whereas Mission Possible, the theme for Building Safety Month 2024, encourages people to get involved in all aspects of building safety. The 2024 campaign explores how building safety is a mission that is only possible through working together with local communities for positive change. This year's weekly themes are understanding the mission, preparing a building safety plan, learning from the pros, engaging in your community, and celebrating success in building safety. And whereas Hagerstown, Maryland is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role that our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, and federal officials who are experts in the building environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Hagerstown do hereby proclaim the month of May 2024 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, the Mayor and City Council members encourage citizens to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities.
Woo. Make him talk. Yeah. You're not gonna say anything, Paul? Or Pam?
Pam didn't want to say anything. Wait, this isn't one. Is this one? Yeah, it is. All right, so Pam didn't want to say anything, but Pam does a lot actually for the Building Safety Month stuff. She's the one that reminds us every year that it is Building Safety Month in May. So she puts forward a lot of effort on that. Everything's on the website for anything that you can actually read about each week that is Building Safety Month. The council member read through which each of them are. I'm not going to bore you with each of those details, but certainly there's outreach done to inform everyone. Even though Building Safety Month is the month of May, every month should be practiced for building safety. So that's all. Got a lot to do tonight.
Yeah, keep it up, keep it up. Thank you.
Get a picture. Get a picture.
There you go, come on. Why don't we rotate you a little bit?
This is cool.
There we go. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more. Good smile. 1, 2, 3.
Next, we have a proclamation for Go Green for Mental Health Month. If you guys would join me up here. Brooke, is it Brooke Curbs? Hello. Come on. Make sure y'all fit. Come on. Hello, everybody. Hi. Hi, Shannon. So this is a proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month for May 7th, 2024. Whereas we recognize that mental health is just as important as physical health, and acceptance of those who struggle reduces fear, worry, blame, and shame families and their loved ones' experiences. And whereas the area that someone lives in plays a significant role in their overall health and well-being, and surroundings can impact how and when a person's needs are met, which in turn affects mental health. And whereas Having safe, stable, and healthy home conditions set the foundation for achieving and maintaining good mental health. And with early, effective interventions, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, citizen share the burden of mental health and has a responsibility to promote wellness and support prevention efforts. Therefore, I, Takesha Martinez, Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, on behalf of the City Council, hereby proclaim May 2024 as Mental Health Month. We also call upon citizens, government, agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health, the steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental health conditions. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your support of Mental Health Month. We want the citizens of Hagerstown to know that this group behind me is just a small representation of the committees and the organizations and agencies in our community who are here to help and support mental health for everyone in the city of Hagerstown. So thank you very much.
I guess the color is green. I'm gonna go with, or you guys like literally,
Anytime you wear
I'm just
green.
making sure. Because that's a heck of an accidental appreciation.
Councilmember Burnett, isn't that right? Anytime you wear green, it's a good day.
Like pink is breast cancer, yeah. Well, and. There's only so many colors that can use under ribbon. Like violet, I mean, purple.
Okay, you need your best smiles. And 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, really.
And we have another proclamation. We have Dave Schuster, the CEO of Horizon Goodwill, and this proclamation is for Horizon Goodwill Industries Week. Hey, Dave.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for coming. Are you ready for all the whereases? You should probably say it with me.
Is this the new one? This might be the new one. We changed it up.
All right, let's see how it goes. Horizon Goodwill Industries Week, May 5th, 2024 through May 11th, 2024. Whereas Horizon Goodwill Industries, Inc., founded in 1955 and a nonprofit social enterprise working to create empowered people in sustainable communities. And whereas their mission is removing barriers to social mobility by meeting people where they are and helping them get where they need to be. And whereas Horizon Goodwill Industries serves the citizens of Western Maryland through housing, education, employment, and health-related services. And whereas Horizon Goodwill Industries provides those services while simultaneously advancing environmental sustainability by emphasizing reuse, repurposing, and recycling of items through their thrift resale enterprise. And whereas for more than 70 years, local Goodwill organizations across the United States of America have been celebrating Goodwill Week to raise awareness of the Goodwill mission and its vital impact of the people in its communities. And therefore, I, Takesha Martinez, Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, do hereby recognize the notable contributions of Horizon Goodwill Industries and do proclaim May 5th through 11th, 2024 as Goodwill Week. On their behalf in Hagerstown, Maryland, encourage all citizens to join me in this observance.
I would just add, we certainly appreciate the recognition, but more importantly, the opportunity to work with the leadership of the city of Hagerstown on a regular basis at this point to hopefully make life a little bit better for the folks that live here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Bye, Dave.
Okay. Council.
Huh? Oh.
National League of Cities. Yeah, get up.
I get to give this one to you instead of you giving it to yourself.
We didn't know what was happening.
This is a proclamation for National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month. Whereas the National League of Cities was founded in 1924 in Lawrence, Kansas as the American Municipal Association by state municipal leagues seeking more coordination and national representation of cities, towns, and villages expanded rapidly. And whereas the nonpartisan National League of Cities is the oldest and largest organization representing municipal governments throughout the United States, representing the interests of more than 19,000 cities, towns, and villages across the country. And whereas the National League of Cities works in partnership with 49 state municipal leagues across the country to strengthen local leadership, drive innovation, and influence the federal policies that impact local programs and operations. And whereas, as the voice of cities, towns, and villages in Washington, D.C., the National League of Cities has successfully championed federal legislative solutions that support municipalities and has worked closely with Congress and the executive branch to educate policymakers on the realities of local implementation. And Hagerstown is a proud member of the National League of Cities and has benefited from the organization's research, technical expertise, federal advocacy, and opportunities to learn from other local governments. And local governments are the bedrock of American democracy, providing 336 million residents with the most accountable, responsive, inclusive, ethical, and transparent government in the world. And whereas from the nation's smallest villages to its largest cities, America's local governments have been essential in transforming the United States of America into the greatest, most influential nation in world history. And finally, whereas Hagerstown was first incorporated in 1762 and is proudly served today by Hagerstown's mayor and council and a municipal workforce of 474 dedicated public servants. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Hagerstown hereby proclaims May 2024 as National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month in celebration of America's local governments and the National League of Cities' historic centennial anniversary. Signed, Takesha Martinez. Thank you for allowing me to do that.
Cities, 100 years.
Okay, and, okay, 1, 2, 3, one more, 1, 2, 3, okay?
All right. All right.
Big month for claiming.
All right. So next up, we have 2024 Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex Annual Report. And we have Eric Dykey, Director of Public Works, and Paul Sweeney, Board Chair of HIAAA. And someone else, too. Hi.
So it's Dan Lavalley,
Hi, Dan.
he's our general manager.
Yeah, Dan's famous. He's been a couple times. Hi, Dan.
Well,
So I'm gonna do a quick introduction and then, so typically we have the HIAAA come in each year, do a report on their annual operations. And we skipped over it in last year. That's really more on me, just too many things, too many irons in the fire. And so now we asked them to come in and bring the council up to date on their current operations. And so I'll just turn it over to them and they can walk you through it.
okay. Again, I'm Paul Sweeney, and I'm the president of the Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association, that's HIAAA. We operate out of the Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex, which is the coolest place in Hagerstown. I mean that literally. So. That's our mantra, it's the coolest place in Hagerstown. So. This gives you an example of some of the different user groups that actually participate at the arena. We have, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, we have something called sled hockey. It's, we have a Kodiak sled hockey team. They've been around for probably, what, 7 or 8 years now? Correct. Public skating, we have 3 different adult leagues. We have an instructional league. We have young kids playing out there. We have junior programs. There's a lot of usage going on at the rink, although a lot of people probably don't see unless you drive by. So I like this little thing. This kind of explains what we are. We are a 501c3. We're made up of all the different major user groups. We meet once a month. All our board members have voting rights, and it was created back in 2014 when we formally took over the operations of the rink. And this is finishing up our 10th fiscal year this coming June. This gives you a little bit of a idea of how we pull people in for public skating. You can see the 1 year, I guess it's 2021, there was a pretty big significant dip there. That was during COVID, but we pulled our numbers back up. We're back to where we were before. I think we generated well over $150,000 from public skating out there last year. So a lot of people that use it love it. This gives you some numbers. We have 6 teams that play regularly in our adult hockey league. There's 8 teams in what we call the recreational league. There's 6 teams in a program that Dan really got started a couple years ago. It's the instructional league. We have an all-female travel adult team called the Mayhem, and we have a sled hockey team. So altogether, we have over 550 people that use the rink regularly for adult hockey. Now for the kids, we have a travel program. It's called the Hagerstown Youth Hockey Association. It says HYHA up there. Kids from 8U all the way up to 18U play in that program. 2 different high school teams. We have the Washington County North Stars, the West Virginia Vipers. That's an interesting situation. There's only, I believe, 6 teams in all of the state of West Virginia. So they, and most of the teams are in the Morgantown area. So they participate, have a tournament here once a year with all the teams from West Virginia coming in and staying and using hotels and all kinds of good things. We have 4 developmental programs, something called power skating. That's something that kids, as they progress in hockey, want to learn how to use their edges and be able to skate faster and stop and go forward. We have a Learn to Play hockey program that's sponsored by the Washington Capitals. A very, very nice program. They provide all the equipment from head to toe for kids. It's for 5 to 9-year-olds? Correct. Yeah. Helmets all the way down to skates. And they get 8 weeks of instruction, and Capitals are always very kind to send a former player to the facility at least once during that program. So we also have something called the Junior Hammerheads. I should probably go to the Hammerheads program first. The Hammerheads is our in-house program made up of kids that started at the lowest level, the Junior Hammerheads, and progressed and don't want to be in the travel program, but they want to still play competitive hockey. The Junior Hammerheads are the kids that really don't want to get into too much of an organized programming, but they come out every Saturday morning. I think we have probably 40, 50 kids in that program alone, but well over 250 kids are participating in the program. The one thing I've noticed, I've been involved with the rink since it opened in 1990, or guessing it was 97, but I think it was late 96. And a lot of the kids that played hockey back then are now playing adult hockey. That's where we're pulling a lot of our adults from. So the numbers are growing and continuing to grow. Okay, figure skating is still very popular at the rink. We have 2 different figure skating programs. We have the Hagerstown Edge Learn to Skate program and the Hagerstown Edge Figure Skating program. We're starting a new program. The Olympics are coming up here pretty soon, so people are going to see, I think next winter, We're going to start a class to introduction to ice dancing. We've got some summer camps coming up, and every year they have a summer skate show. Usually when I talk in October, that's already passed, so that's coming up. So if anybody wants to see young kids enjoying having the music playing and doing jumps and skating around, a good time to come. Do you have the date for that?
June 15th.
Okay, June 15th. Okay, right.
I heard doing that.
All right. We had well over 280 kids registered for the Learn to Skate program last year. Okay, so this just talks about, how our board functions. We're always looking at how our programs are working, how we can improve different parts of the ICE facility. We make recommendations at every month's board meetings. All our board members are in charge of a certain committee, and the physical state of the ice and the boards right now is in pretty good condition. However, we'll get to this in a second. All bills right now are current as of April 24, 2024. Our Zamboni's almost paid off. We purchased the Zamboni back in 2018 for $125,000. I think we owe less than $15,000 on it now at this point. But we had an emergency closure in mid-March that closed the rink for almost a month. The issue that we're starting to see surface itself more than we really would like, it's got a very old system. It's the original system. It was put in '96, and it's getting harder and harder to find replacement parts for the compressors and the chilling system, and we probably need to replace that system within the next couple of years. Also, this I think was the first time we ever flushed out the system, for lack of a better word, but we were under the impression that our system held about 5,000 pounds of Freon, and we have the older style Freon in the system, which is R22, which they don't make anymore, and you can't just replace it with a different version. So anyway, we flushed it out. We pulled out 6,800 pounds, and it wasn't at capacity. So our system evidently holds a lot more than 6,800 pounds. We have over 6 miles of piping underneath the ice, and we cleaned the Freon up, put it back in, fixed the issue we were having, and the ice has been working really, really good since we were able to do that. But we're committed to getting that done, but it's an aging system. We spent more money than we really wanted to have to do on that, and we just need to look at replacing it soon. These are some things that we've done in the past. We replaced the entire dehumidification system about a year ago, maybe almost 2 years ago now, I guess. That project was a total cost, I'm rounding it up to about $300,000. The city paid 75% of that. We paid roughly 25% of that. That was a pretty major undertaking. And again, the dehumidification system that was in there was just not working. We had problems with dripping. We wanted to paint, if you've ever been in the facility, there's beams going across the top that are metal. We tried painting them several times in the summer, and they were too wet because of the humidification in there. So we put the new system in. Last year, we were able to paint everything. It was kind of neat. Dan comments, first thing you noticed, and the system's working really well. So, but the big expenditure we're looking at is a new ice chilling system. We've gotten some rough numbers in. We're going to get some more numbers in, but we're thinking that it's going to cost somewhere between $1.2 and $2 million. So we should be fine for the next couple of years, but by 2026, we're going to need to do something. So we've been working with Eric to keep the system running. Like I told you before, it's getting harder and harder to find parts for the system. We have 2 different compressors. One of them right now is not working. We had a little bit of a leak in the system that's been repaired, but we can't use that compressor right now, so we're gonna have to get that rebuilt. Again, it's getting harder and harder to find parts. We want to have, more tournaments. We're partnering with, local businesses, hotels. Whenever we have kids come in for tournaments, a lot of local hotels are being used, a lot of local restaurants are being used. People are spending money and time from out of the area here in Hagerstown. And we have a fundraising program that we're putting together right now because our part of the $1.2 to $2 million is a pretty big number. So if we go with the higher number, the $2 million, our responsibility is going to be $500,000. So we don't have an extra $500,000 just sitting around. So we're in the process of formulating, and we've already started it with our different user groups. We want to show the city that we really like this facility, we really want to be here, and we really want to participate in this. So we're very excited about moving forward and keeping the coolest place in Hagerstown here. So we haven't given up on a second sheet of ice. We're at capacity many times, many nights, many evenings. So that we talked about getting that set up about 4 years ago, and unfortunately COVID kind of stopped that at the time. But we haven't given up on that yet, and we still want to pursue that. So I think that's everything. Is that the last line there? Any questions?
How much does the CVB participate in your efforts?
When we have a tournament, we'll get in touch with them and they'll help with giving us brochures, but not really a whole lot.
Any financial contribution?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Two quick questions. On the scheduling side, so the city maintains events calendar through the Office of Public Engagement. I don't know, do you all make sure that your information is submitted through that, so it's on our master events calendar?
Yeah, we coordinate with, I forget what her name is.
Amy.
Yeah, Amy. Mhm.
Amy?
My rec staff works with them,
Mhm.
promoting events and stuff they have going on.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking of the calendar that Brittany has started, but the other question is, do you have a formal replacement reserve study or list, like various companies and HOAs and so forth have to do, where you list everything, you know its cost, you know its useful life, you know when you're gonna get to the point where things are gonna need to be replaced? Have you done that?
No, we don't have anything like that, but we've just been, when we started operating the facility in 2014, it was just
Okay.
kind of,
Okay. I mean, knowing that you have a pretty significant replacement on the horizon, it probably would be a good time to do a more formal, what's referred to as replacement reserve
Mhm.
program. You can either do it internally in-house, or, there are companies that do it, but basically you list everything.
Talking about like primarily big ticket items.
Well, even, I mean, not the operational things that go through your operational budget, but the repairs and maintenance and replacement, mostly replacement. So that,
Well, the
Yeah.
majority of the building itself is owned by the city. And so the city is the landlord for the structure itself, the main mechanical and electrical systems and plumbing, such as HVAC. We replaced 6 HVAC units a year or so ago for $90-some thousand. But all these items are big ticket items. And so when the current user agreement was put in place in 2018, there was 3 main components in which there was a shared cost. That was the dehumidification system, the replacement of the ice making equipment, and the boards. What do you call those?
The boards.
The boards. Oh, there's nothing, sorry. Well, the boards last pretty long, but all this equipment is coming up on 25 years. And so in 2018, the shared cost was built into the use agreement of 75% by the city, 25% by the HIAAA. And, when you're talking about, $1.2 to $2 million, their share is 500,000, potentially our share is 1.5 million. And so a few years ago, using ARPA funding, we were able to make the dehumidification system happen. Because through ARPA, it had a lot to do with air quality and such. And the system they had was not pulling in any fresh air. Whereas the new system uses fresh air, so ARPA was allowed to be used for that funding. The boards are held up okay. I don't think there's any real issues there. So now we're on to the next big ticket item. And so while they operate in the black, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they do a good job, they do a great job, but they don't have a lot of income for such a large item like this. And frankly, neither is the city right at the moment. We're funding a field house, we're funding a parking garage. These two projects alone are close to, $35, $40 million. And so we together have to figure out how to make replacing the system. We have to figure out financially. So in fiscal year 26, we have $2 million budgeted for the ice making equipment. But honestly, it needs to be started soon, because by the time you hire a mechanical engineer, it's 6 to 8 months to get a design, you get it bid out, you get it priced, that's another 3 or 4 months, and you start working on it, and we've been told it's probably 8 months to a year before they really get it built. So even if you started today, you're probably 2 years out. And so we really need to start, and that's part of the reason we brought him in there tonight, was really need to start thinking as partners in this, how to make this all work and how to budget for it. But to your question, a lot of stuff in the building is actually owned by the city, or it's on our asset list. And so we replaced the HVAC, we're doing about $8,000 of repairs tomorrow on the roof and the outer portion of the building. Plumbing, electrical, we've done odds and ends and that sort of thing as they come up. But those are the largest ticket items of those type of things.
Yeah, I feel like every so often there is this process of reminder that, the city entered into this venture. I mean, it wasn't the group that's here before us today. The city entered into this venture with a number of partners who guaranteed that this public amenity would be this shining, profitable thing, and it wasn't. And, the reality is, for the first course of its life, the city directly, we did not do a great job of operating it. Nor, and I was part of that first board, that was made up of volunteers to sort of oversee its operations as sort of the liaison from council. There was a lot of politics involved in that, and we didn't do a really awesome job of managing the ice time to maximize the efficiency of operations and the marketability. That's just a reality. And the folks that started out at the onset of this, they went away pretty quick. And it wouldn't be for these two guys sitting here and a number of other folks during what I'll call it the second half of its life, right? Because it was on its, it was being considered to be converted at one point to turf.
2007, you're ready to
And
shut
so
down.
about 2008, 2009, it was either we need to make this thing profitable through hockey, that's just a fact, and we need to have an entity operate it that isn't the city, that I think is more directly invested in the use. To me, it's akin to if we were to hand over the city's swimming pool, or when the Suns used to operate the Suns Stadium, or hand over our golf course. So first, I want to thank you guys, for making it marketable, making it operable in the black. And we really have two choices. The one choice is we say, this isn't an amenity that we're going to invest ourselves in the future, or we say this is our property. This is a critical component of the amenities that we offer this community and the region, frankly. And we're going to ensure that investment, runs and continues to run you know, the way that it should, and that's, so, I just feel like every few years, you know what I mean? We're reminded of the fact that, yep, this is still ours, and we still need to make sure, yeah, and we still need to make sure we're
And
doing
what's
what we
happening
need
now,
to.
it's been 25 years. And so.
Oh, yeah.
And so everything's coming to the end of its useful life, and now we have to decide what's the future, right?
Yeah.
And I remind you also that, you know, this east end of town, which is interesting, you know, we're building the field house, but what's already been there is the ice and sports complex. We built a skate park, we have fairgrounds
That's
park, we
right.
have a golf course, that's all on the east side of the.
Oh, I
city.
think it's, yeah,
So,
I think
I
it
mean,
should be that way.
Really, literally within walking distance, you could go from the field house to the golf course, to the skate park, to the ice and sports complex.
I think to Councilmember Perini's point, I think it's important to make it clear to the public, the cooling system is sort of the next big ticket item. In other words, that's the big thing. You know, there are other things that may need addressed.
Yeah.
But like without that, the ice rink doesn't work. And
No
that's
ice,
really
there
the
is
only,
no
that's
ice.
right, that's the only really big thing.
Warehouse and an ice rink.
Yeah, that's really the only big thing out there that we have to address, and we have to just
Yeah.
bite the bullet and figure it out and not give Michelle a heart attack in the process. Of-
So let me.
She's well aware.
Let me, I was gonna ask you
we've
a
talked
yes or
about
no
this a lot.
question. So, we're gonna talk about the budget in a few minutes, so just yes or no question. Have you given this information through the finance director, and we're gonna find that in here?
Yes.
Yeah, they talk.
Fiscal year 26 is where it's.
We'll
looking
talk
at.
about it, we'll talk about it
Yes or no
a
question?
little bit later with the finance director. Thank you.
Yeah, you're spot on, Chris, because the only thing we have to sell is the ice. I mean, see, everything revolves around that, so we have to, the chilling system is what it's commonly called, has to be working. And unfortunately, I don't know, we're gonna probably be able to get another couple of years out of it. If we didn't have to do this, we would just keep nursing it, but the system was originally put in 96, 95, 96.
And the Freon's gonna be your, in
Yeah.
addition to the repairs, because you said you have to reclaim it, you know, as people are upgrading other systems. That Freon's being reclaimed and resold, but eventually it's going to not be available.
The newer systems, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but I'm gonna give you my version of how this works. We have what's called a direct system right now, where the Freon runs through everywhere. It runs through the compressors, it runs through the ice, runs through the cooling tower. We have over 6 miles of piping underneath the ice. When the ice comes out, we have a sand base, you can go look at it, the pipes are literally that far apart from each other. And what happened this last time is we think there was a clog in one of the pipes. When we ended up evacuating the system, it cleared it up. We put it back in, but we don't really know what caused it, and you can't just open up a pipe and clean it out. So you can't do like a rotor-rooter job. So it's a lot more complicated than that. But the newer systems, there's a lot less Freon used. In the chiller, they're indirect systems. So the chiller holds everything, maybe 800 pounds of Freon is used in that. And then you send out a chemical like Freon, or glycol, or even brine into the system. You chill it in the cooler and it goes back out into the system, and it's a lot less expensive for that. So the maintenance of that is gonna be a lot lower cost, we think, because it's just gonna be the one compressor system, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was a discussion at one point of if we had a concrete base versus a sand base, that it would be better for cooling purposes.
I don't know that that's accurate. The advantage to a sand base is it's easier to get to everything. So like, we can see what's going on down there.
Yeah.
We can get everything. We were able to take those couple of pipes out, and part of the process was we ran nitrogen through the pipes. I don't think we would have been able to do that if it would have been a concrete base. So,
So the repairs they were talking about were recently completed already. You'll see a consent form at the end of the month for approval for about $45,000 in repairs. They've purchased some R22 Freon, which we owe them 75% of that cost. And so there's some costs going back and forth, and then there's gonna be some additional, we need to rebuild a compressor, and there might be something else I need to speak with you about. But we're getting the system to a point where, like I said, we can get another couple of years out of it, but it's just getting to the point, it's just worn out. But when the ice fails, we have to repair it immediately. And unfortunately, we can't wait until council's approval in so I've worked with Michelle and Scott to get those approvals and then bring it to you afterward, because they have to get it fixed immediately, otherwise they're out of operation.
Yeah, we had, we had one little tiny spot. It was maybe about that long and about this wide that wasn't freezing. That was probably 10 feet from the boards. So you can have a public skate, you can put cones up and go around that, but you can't play a hockey game on that.
Yeah.
And that's our big ticket, you know, that's where we generate most of our revenue from, so you can't put cones around and tell skaters not to go.
And I would
through
only
that.
add, I've only been, you know, when I took over rec and, or Parks and Rec in 21, so I've worked with these guys for a few years now, but the board and Dan, they do a great job. They do a great job, I mean, they rarely call when they need something. We try to address as quickly as possible, but I'll give them credit, they do a very good job for us, so. Dasher boards is what I was thinking.
There's not an ask, it's just this, to kind of update us. so
Yes,
we can-
yes. To make everybody aware, and they usually once a year come in and bring everybody up to speed.
Thank you. You guys good? More questions? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for what you do for our community.
All right, next up, we have Dolman Black Heritage Museum, sponsor request, and we have Alicia Parson and Nick Dean, our projects director, and we have also Ms. Marsha McCall Sanders, the president.
Miss Saunders comes without her hearing aids today, so you guys are gonna have to speak up.
Hello.
How is everyone?
Hello. Good evening, afternoon.
I guess I'll begin with the update. First of all, thank you for allowing us to come in. It's been quite a while, hasn't it, since I've been here? Yeah. So the update, we're still working on the plan and design for the future home. In fact, we are doing the floor by floor now. You know, we've done the outside, and I'm extremely pleased with what Travis Price Architects has come up with. We have written a marketing booklet that goes with it, and it's called Metaphorically Speaking. And what it actually does, it tells the reader exactly what each element of the plan and design for the building, where it comes from a history of the former enslaved, and through to today. You know, we have many people ask, why are we putting water around the new construction, the museum, that piece? That's the question that we get asked all the time. Well, that moat that is actually around the base of the new museum is actually a metaphor for the transatlantic slave trade. And so every element actually speaks to the Black American experience here in America. It's our history, and we've found a way to celebrate it in a sense where our history is not pretty. Most days I am frustrated by knowing my mere existence here as a Black person in America, a Black woman especially in America. However, I know that this project of the Dolman Black Heritage Museum is something that is definitely going to be a draw, and it's going to bring people together, as their events do. Their events are always steeped in a social consciousness where everyone is welcome to come and learn this history, and not only that, but celebrate who we are. And we always invite other cultures to join in with us, and we're very proud of our track record with different cultures within the community, with outside of this community. The beauty of the Dolman Black Heritage Museum is its reach. We have a very national reach. We have a global reach. We have people that lend us their support, not financial, but their support in any manner of things that we're doing there. Sometimes you can feel as though you're doing things in a vacuum. But when you have people that you can call on outside of not just yourself or your family, but even outside of your community, that will lend to you their expertise on how they succeeded in getting these things done. And by my saying that, I do want to say, congratulations on staying with National League of Cities. That was something that I wanted to make certain that this city remained a part of, because for a lot of times, and especially for minority communities, because we are minorities in majority communities such as Hagerstown, we don't always have the answers on how we address issues within the marginalized communities. National League of Cities is where you get those answers, because you find cities just like ours, with a demographic such as ours, and you learn how to go out there and find the money through their lobbying efforts and things like that. So, thank you guys for getting membership back with them. Thank you so much, because I didn't think you all were listening to me when I said you have to do that. But it's good to know that you hear me. So that's where we are. We just received a bond bill for $150,000, and I wish I could say that that bond bill was due to the efforts of you all's coalition, the Washington County Coalition. I know it wasn't. So I do want to take a moment to thank everybody out there who is hearing me in the sound of my voice, who wrote letters to our legislatures in support of the Dolman Black Heritage Museum. Thank you. You all made this happen. Scott, thank you, because I know that Scott was adamant in speaking for you all to make certain that we stayed on their agenda list. However, I don't mind saying that they didn't advocate for us. Our community advocated for us with a letter writing campaign to the legislature. So, Scott, I thank you for what you attempted to do. However, I know where this came from. And Delegate Grossman heard from the colleagues of old of mine that said on the legislature that they were getting these letters pouring into them. And so, again, I was up for it this year, you know, the whole lobbying for ourselves kind of thing. So we do have that. It's matched by the federal funding of $563,000 that we were awarded through Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen's office. So the ask was for a dollar-for-dollar match. But the legislature was cutting everything. So we are very happy and very proud to say that we got $150,000. We will match that with the $563,000 that we already have, and that should take us into the construction phase of the future home. So we will finally have the design figured out, and the booklet that we're selling, there's a price tag on it of $1,000, but it is a marketing piece for our capital campaign. And also, we unveiled on Valentine's Day our new website. So I would ask everyone to go check it out. It's beautiful, it's more informative, and it's worthy of who we are now, and that's at DolmanBlackHeritageMuseum.org. Please go and check that out, and you will see that it has on there the upcoming Juneteenth celebration, as well as this is the first year since the pandemic that we will be having the fundraiser. We will be having that on the Friday night, June 14th. We decided to move it all around the same time because we're celebrating. That Juneteenth is about celebration, the celebration of survival of a people, and we just decided to move it to that time because I'm getting older and I'm getting tired. And it's getting more and more difficult for me to keep all the plates spinning. And so that's why we have brought in Ms. Marcia Saunders, who is now the president of the Friends of the Dolman Black Heritage Museum, which is the organizing and fundraising group for the organization. She's doing a bang-up job. However, this is her first time doing it, so therefore, financially, we are behind in fundraising. But again, I'm optimistic. I actually told someone that I wasn't going to do a lot of talking today, so I'm going to leave that here and turn this over to Marcia so that she can tell you about. But she heard me. But she heard me. So she's gonna tell you about the Juneteenth celebration, and if she falters in any way, I will step in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. It's good to be here. My name is Marcia Saunders. I took on the role of Friends of the Doman, Friends of the Doman Black Heritage Museum, president of the fund. We basically do the fundraisers. This year, we're having our masquerade ball for Cotton Club Twist, which we hadn't had in a while due to COVID. COVID had really stopped us from coming together. So this year, we're doing that again. It will be held out at Cortland Mansion with entertainment. We have contacted from North Hagerstown High School. We have contacted the Black Student Union, and they're willing to come in and maybe act as hostesses and host that evening for us, greeting people. They're gung-ho about what we're doing, and they're excited. They even volunteered to come to the Juneteenth celebration to offer up anything that they possibly could do. And we're grateful for that. And like we said, funding is mainly what that's our goal to go forward right now, getting the funding. Juneteenth celebration will be a kickoff with a 2.5 walk, which will commemorate how long it took Galveston, Texas to realize that they were free. It took 2.5 years, so we're doing a walk. It's gonna be a kickoff, but it's a walk that will probably last up, till December?
Yes,
Is it
well,
December?
because
It's a fundraiser. It's for people to get sponsorship, so.
we're actually doing it on Juneteenth. However, because it's 2.5 miles, and people can decide that they want to do more than just the 2.5. The sponsorship is $10 per mile. The more sponsors you get, the more money you're raising for the museum, for operations for the museum and next year's Juneteenth celebration. So, but we can't, because of the history of Juneteenth, we can't just shut it down on Juneteenth. It has to last through December, because the truth of the matter is that just because we were freed, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863. It took until 1865 for it to reach Galveston, Texas, but the nation was not completely free until December 6th of 1865. That's the reason why, if you look out there at people celebrating Juneteenth, it always starts on June 19th or that weekend, the weekend before or after, but it can run all the way up until December 6th. So that's the history behind that. I think I told you guys that last year or year before last when I was here. But that's the reason why it's allowed to run through to December 6th. And if anyone wants to take part in that walkathon and want to extend it out until that point because they want to raise more money for the organization and for next year's event, that's okay too. But for the most part, we're doing it that morning.
Yeah. Also on that day, we will be having nonprofits there to come and set up tables. We will also have vendors and food vendors and craft vendors. The significance behind this is to come and have fun and celebrate and not have, we had programs in the past, but I don't think our programs are gonna be to work. We had people come in and talk. I think at that time, who came in and talked?
A lot of these people.
Okay.
We're not
Came
doing
in, but
the
we're not doing
educational
it.
piece. We
Yeah.
think that this is year 4,
This is-
that it's been a federal holiday. People should know what Juneteenth is by now, and if they don't, shame on you if you don't know what it is. However, you have from now until June 14th to figure it out. So, but we're not going to waste the time, the valuable time that we have as a community, as a Black community, spending time educating people that don't know. We're celebrating. This holiday is about celebrating survival of a people. And as long as we have to feel the need to have to educate the masses of the community, then we're not celebrating. We're not celebrating my ancestors who went through a lot to be in this country. So this year, we are moving it from University Plaza to the historically Black neighborhood of Jonathan Street. We're taking it to Wheaton Park. I do question why we're being charged $100 to use the park. So you guys, you can talk that over amongst yourself after I'm gone, but I do wonder why we have to pay to use that park. But we realized over the past 3 years that we weren't getting a lot of the residents from that neighborhood. So we're bringing it to the neighborhood. And it's going to be okay because our museum is going to eventually be there, open up there, and it's going to make sense. It's just all going to make sense that we have the museum, we're celebrating Juneteenth, and we have the Medal of Honor Triangle, and we have Wheaton Park with the beautiful histories of both of those places. It just works, it aligns well. So, I mean, that's why we're moving it there, to make certain that these nonprofits that we're inviting, that these resources are getting to the people that need it the most. So we're going to make certain that we achieve that, and if I have to go door to door and ask people to come on out and get some of these resources that we're bringing in, because we're hoping to get Meritus involved. We know that we have, the health department is going to be there, the library is going to be there. We want to connect the dots of what people, what households need, how families need, that are living on or below the poverty line. We want to be able to offer them what they need to succeed in this community. And not seeing that demographics at our events in the past was very disheartening. So we're moving it to my neighborhood. And we'll have issues with parking, but we won't be upset because you know, especially, that we figure out parking. We figure it out.
Alicia, in the past, it was it Saturday and Sunday? And then now you've moved, like, you're doing the masquerade ball on the 14th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the ask is for the 10,500, is that
That's for
correct?
Saturday.
That's for Saturday.
Mhm.
We had talked, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, about like creating more of a city event in this.
I wanted
rather
you guys to
than
do that.
it being like a sponsorship. Am I imagining things, or we did talk like that? Is that right?
It was a suggestion that I had made that you all, yeah, that you all take it on the same way you do 4th of July. I would love to not have to do this and be able, I mean, it takes a lot to do this, and so therefore, I don't get to celebrate me. If I'm having to do this, if the city is doing this, then I can come and be a part of the celebration. So, yeah, I would love that, but I would also like to get that 75-25 split that you have, like with, yeah, there you go. Some sentences don't need to be finished, right?
Not on camera, at least. Because we have the set sponsorships that we have done at the beginning of the year, with the maximum amount and all that kind of stuff. So that's always my hesitation, is that making sure that everything is fair and equitable, as far as the sponsorships. But yet to be able to celebrate this and create it as an event that, to be able to do these big things, to offer it in a different way. And I don't know, the budget is the way it is and our agreements are the way they are, and
Well, here's
special exceptions and all that stuff, but.
Here's what I'd like to say, because I sent this in a letter to you all last year. I don't like hearing fair and equitable when you're talking about events that you do in this city, because first and foremost, you all haven't done one Juneteenth event. So therefore, there's no fair and equitability here. So we're asking for these funds because you all are not taking up that responsibility to do this. So therefore, we've not been repaired as a people for you all to say that we're going to judge you like we do everybody else that does anything else in this city. We don't do that.
Well, when she was speaking of fair and equitable, she was saying when we sat down with
hear
this
what you said.
administration, when we sat down in this administration, one of the things that we talked about was making sure that all the events that asked got some money for it. And so and that's where she's saying fair and equitable.
But it's not fair and equitable when you look at the history of events, is what I'm saying. See,
I understand what you're saying, but I'm telling you what fair and equitable.
But you can't
according
use
to
those.
I can, because according to this administration, fair and equitable was once me and Councilwoman Burnett sat down at this table, we wanted to make sure that people were getting the opportunity to throw events with city sponsorship. And
And
so
I
that's
hear
why
that.
there was a set amount for each event, whether it was the first year, the second year, or the third year. So that's what she's referring to.
Well, the first year we got more, the second year we got.
Right,
we
you
got
did.
Far less.
Good.
But you can't say that it's fair and equitable when again, it's not been acknowledged.
I'd say,
Our
again,
community
her
has not been-
reference to fair and
I
equitable
understand what you're
around the
saying.
values was what this administration sat down at the table to make sure that we were being fair, to make sure people were able to access the monies, right?
I
And so that
understand.
meant not giving a specific entity because we liked them, regardless if it was the black community or white community, not giving a specific entity a certain amount of money without being able to spread it out. And that was something that was important to us as an
Well, that's- but-
administration.
but that's-
Not necessarily about history. I agree. I'm sitting here as a black woman, born and raised here too, and I agree with you. But I don't want to miss the fact that we sat down at this table and came up with some things that we could make sure that it was fair
But can
across
you-
the city.
Can you hear that the process that you put together is not fair? It's
There
not
was no
fair.
process.
Well-
There was no process before we sat down. I didn't feel as though it was a fair process. And so sitting here and being a part of this, I do feel as though that we have given all organizations that wanted to throw an event or do an event and new organizations the opportunity to do an event, because there was nothing happening in Hagerstown or downtown. There was not anything happening. And that was one of the things that this administration wanted to be more community driven, that was a value of ours.
And I hear what you're saying, however, you can't judge something like Juneteenth
I agree.
along the metrics of fair and equitable,
I
when
agree.
it is not. It took 100 years for this holiday to even be acknowledged. So you can't use the same rubrics that you use for everybody else and for everything else. You can't. And the fact that because you said you and Councilwoman Burnett sat down and discussed this as black women, that is more.
I said with the administration, not just necessarily us
Okay,
as
but
black
you-
women,
but-
but
but
as an entire
you did
administration. We are
point
part
just
of
you
a
two
body.
out.
We
Okay,
became
I
in as a part of
understand
a
that.
body.
Well, then, with that being said, I needed to be understood that in order for there to be fairness and equitableness, then that means that everybody is repaired and everybody is playing from the same level playing field, and that's not the case. Not with this holiday, not with us as a black people. It's not the same. And so, because I do this every day, all day, every day, I grow tired because everyone wants to say that now we are equal. We're not. Our communities are still part of the largest disparities in this country. We're not fair. So because you want to treat other nonprofits fair and equitable that have had a 200-year head start, that's not fair. It's just not fair. So, I'm gonna leave it at that. But it's not fair to treat us and to fund us the same way you do other organizations that have been doing this and have had this head start for the longest
I don't think
time.
that it's. I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just in reference to events. And, okay, and so that's the only reason why I'm even saying anything, especially because I don't want it to feel to this body that they're being misunderstood. And that's why I wanted to make sure that I threw out the value of where that fair and equitable came from. That's why. I'm not disputing you,
Okay,
but at
because-
the same time, I'm making sure that you understand, you sat at this table. And you sat at this table as the first Black woman elected. And so you understand what it means to sit at the table and to make sure, that you're making the right decisions. And so.
To make certain that the representation is accurate, yes.
Okay, so-
Absolutely, I know exactly what that feels like. I still do that, still to this day. I will die doing that because I have no choice, because people don't see the 17% Russian in me when they see me. So I understand it from a vantage point wherein it doesn't matter if we're not repaired. If you can say that this holiday has been acknowledged by the city is doing their thing, or that this is a holiday that, okay, it's the 4th of July for Black folk. If you can say that we've acknowledged this as a city, and so therefore we can lump them in with everyone else that is doing something, every nonprofit, because every nonprofit is not doing things, or every organization is not putting on events that are entrenched in the history of this country. This event is embedded in American history. That's the difference. And that's where it's not fair. You can't look at equitability in the sense of it's just an event, because it's not just an event. It holds a lot of weight.
I agree with you. I agree. And I think that it is important, me personally, Juneteenth is a federal holiday. It is recognized in the country now. People should know what Juneteenth is, just like you said, right? To me, it's not just an event. It's not just another, we do, Christmas tree lighting, and we do, there's all these things, and celebration,
Yeah,
and
partnership.
fireworks, and correct. I just think that our Juneteenth celebration, and I don't think it's, the ability to have it done by June 15th, I think Brittany would probably, want to push me out of a window, but I just think that, and we've had this discussion before,
And it
and
comes
the
around
ask
every
is,
year.
right, I just think that there's a way to do it the way that it deserves to be done.
And I promise you, if the city would like to take it on, and I say the same
Right.
thing to the county, I want you all to have it, okay? I want to come to a city and county sponsored Juneteenth event. I don't want to do this.
But that being said, Alicia, I can't, by, everything that we've set in place with the other events, give more. I can't agree to that. But I think that somehow it needs to be its own city-sponsored partnership of some sort. It's just me.
And I find that quite sad. I find that quite sad. Because once again, by the city's omission of this holiday, we're doing the heavy lifting, and yet we know what we have to do. We have two events that you all know, because we applied for the ARPA funding and didn't receive it. We have not had a fundraiser since 2019 because of our demographics being hardest hit by COVID-19. So as an organization, the Dolman Black Heritage Museum is under an awful lot of weight and pressure to just be seen in this community, to make certain that we are recognized in this country, in this country as well. But again, it's disheartening because this is the 4th year. The city has had every ample chance to do this themselves. And we are going to do it again to ensure that it gets done. And we can't have a $10,000 budget met. it's disheartening. As a taxpayer, it's disheartening. It's very disheartening.
That's just me, I'm only one
Well, I
person.
wanna, I know in the beginning of the year, we always, bring up, I think it's eight nonprofits?
8 nonprofits that got the.
That to get some funding, I would, well, next year will be probably different in the seat. But for future administration, I would like that discussion to add the Dolman Museum as a core or one of the 8 entities. So that way we have a plan in the beginning of what we can use the funds for to move forward with your mission. That's what I like to see. So future administration. let's
For
take
the
that.
organization or for Juneteenth?
For your organization
Oh,
in
okay.
itself.
Well, thank you.
Because we do talk about that at the beginning of the year, but
Okay.
it's now May, so that's just my thought on that. But what is, Brittany, what is our max for the sponsorship? 3? And we agreed to that
And that's 2 less than last year.
due to the number of requests we get.
I'd like to see you guys meet last year's number. I mean, 3 is not, we can't even count on that from the 5 last year. We knew that we couldn't count on the 10 from the year prior to, but now you're cutting it again.
What's the 17.5? What's the $17,500?
That's for
total
Juneteenth,
budget?
that's for
That's
the
the full
park.
budget.
That's not for the ball.
So,
The ball is not in that Juneteenth budget, except for, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're looking at,
It's
because I know that
this
there's two different.
this letter from December,
Oh, yeah, because you got another letter asking for table sponsorship, right? Yeah. Yeah, no. The 10-5 is all towards the Juneteenth celebration.
and what is the 17.5?
Total budget.
That's a total budget of what it would cost to do just the Juneteenth. That's not yeah, because you should have another letter that was sent to you all to just sponsor tables.
And this is the 50th.
For the ball, the 14th is the ball.
And this is the 50th anniversary for Dolman?
Yes. Yeah, I know, right? People don't know that it's been here for 50 years, but it has been.
I do.
Oh, yeah, you do. Of course you do.
Been out of school 50 years this year, so
Yeah,
yeah.
you do.
And she didn't come to North High till after I left, so.
How do we determine, and I don't know when we determine this, but the beginning of the year or when, what have you, the city-sponsored events like the tree lighting, 4th of July, what have you, how do we determine which holidays we're gonna do some sort of event for? When is that determined?
That's determined beginning of the year, beginning of the budget year, from the amounts set aside.
Like, I don't
Because
know.
we've gotten 60-some requests for events.
No, I mean like the city, the city
Which ones
events.
we
Which
do.
ones we do as a city. Like, I know that the city puts on.
That has stayed static for decades.
So-
I don't
so-
think we have added anything in decades.
So I don't have an answer for this year. I don't have a solution for this year, but what can we do to make sure that Juneteenth is something that's celebrated going forward?
That's up to you all.
We talked about it, I mean, this is, like I said, this
I
is
mean,
not
the
the first time
problem
it's
is,
come up.
the problem we have here is trying to put on a Juneteenth celebration with our staff. I don't know how we do it.
Well,
I mean.
I think a part
You
of
figure it out. You figure it
partnership.
out, the same way you do
But I-
with 4th of July.
I feel like
You
this is
figure
the
it out.
3rd year that we've had this
It
conversation.
is, it is.
And I also feel like this is the same exact conversation we had
It is.
several months ago with Jess Green and the donut drop. And I say the same thing here that I said during that discussion. We're either going to decide as a city
That we're gonna do it.
Right.
to have a New Year's Eve event or to have a Juneteenth event, or we're not. by partnering with other entities to do it, we're going to have to figure out what that cost is if we decide to do it, because no matter how you slice it, whether it's Ms. Green talking about the New Year's Eve celebration, or whether it's Ms. Parsons talking about the Juneteenth celebration, they're saving us money in time, at staff, in coordination, et cetera, in doing that lifting in that process for us. And, you know, if we can coordinate things like the tree lighting, 2 different tree lighting events, and the July 4th fireworks and things like that, then we just have to decide whether we're going to figure out a way, and I feel like it's the 3rd year in a row I've said
I
this,
know.
like, to
Say
do
the
that
same thing.
and say, okay, who's gonna be the committee? And, you know, I use this, and I realize it was a bigger
See, we
entity,
don't do
but
any of that with Crumpy.
I hear that. We don't now, but clearly when they were here a couple of months ago, they said, hey, we've been doing this lifting.
Right.
We'd really like you to do the lifting, or you to do some of the funding of the lifting, or there's not going to be an event next year. And so I feel like we're in this same boat of conversation at the moment. And all I'm saying is I look back at, and again, I realize the organization was much bigger, but, you know, for 15 years, when we did the Blues Fest, and we shelled out about $115,000 a year, what folks don't realize, to cover the cost of that event, and the August-Overfest, which, you know, again, it took a committee of folks dedicated to that particular item. So all I'm saying is
But
to
remember-
me, the monetary amount being requested by both this event and by and by the New Year's Eve event are small in the grand scheme of our budget if we decide to have these annual events. And they gotta be open and available to the community. And if that's the case, then we need to establish a committee of folks that are going to be dedicated to doing that lifting, where we're doing sort of more of the funding lifting, moving forward, you know, to accomplish that task. And so both parties have to do that, you
And
know,
understand
that part of it. I
the
just,
last 3 years,
otherwise we say, you know what, we're not going to do these events, or, you know, we're happy to give you guys the green light. And again, it doesn't matter to me whether it's this event or the New Year's Eve or whatever event we're talking about. It can't, we can't pretend that it's ours. I don't know how else to say that.
well, and.
There has to be.
Let
there
me
has to
say
be-
this.
I know, but I'm saying, I feel like in these conversations, we're reaching that point.
Which is where I think we're at with this conversation. We just want to know. Because Blues Fest, you know, you bring up Blues Fest, August-Oktoberfest was not a city event.
It wasn't. And I said they
Blues
had
Fest,
much broader
absolutely a
committees.
city-run, Blues Fest was a city-run event. To be I don't want to run another event. I would much rather give them the resources for them to run the event than to have us run an event.
Then it can't be treated the same
Then-
way
yeah,
that
then
we
we
do like
can't
with
do
the
it the
events,
same
but
way.
it's not
That
the
is
same.
what I'm
Yep,
saying.
yep, yep,
Right.
yep.
If
And I'm
that's
fine
the
with that.
direction, that's the way it had,
Then there-
staff's thoughts on this, that's the way it has to
And it
go.
I agree, but I feel like we're not getting there,
not.
and I feel like,
Right.
at
Yeah.
least just for these 2 that have come through our table in the last 6 months, I feel like at least these 2 are of that magnitude where we have to say, okay, there's a committee that's running this event, the city is going to provide some form of fiscal resource to accomplish that. I don't think the ask is huge in the grand scheme of our budget, but it has to be an event that is open and available to the public. It has to have some, you know, I don't know what you want to say, federal,
Like a holiday?
well, yeah, just something,
it
just
has to
saying, like, it can't be the 60 other requests that we get.
Right.
There has to be a
There has to be,
differentiation.
I agree
And there is.
so
And-
much.
There is a
With due respect-
differentiation that is not being acknowledged here. You see, the differentiation is that this holiday is about the end of slavery in this country. And ignoring it doesn't make it go away. And if you look at
how
think
many
it has to do with
years?
I don't think anyone's
Nobody's
ignoring
I
it. I
understand.
think that there's
Okay,
a
then-
technical.
Then I need it to be acknowledged better, because I'm not hearing where you understand that this is something that next year we celebrate 250 years of America, and not once have we celebrated black people. That's what Juneteenth is. And this town needs to recognize it. Metropolitan cities all over this country recognizes Juneteenth. We don't. And as a native of Hagerstown and taxpayer and voter, I want my contribution to this city recognized.
Yeah, I do too. I agree.
Juneteenth allows us that.
That we don't want to go through this again. Staff, tell us what to do.
And I think that it's around the time that it kind of comes too, is that it's a month before. And I do believe that, when I was sitting at the table as council, it was the same conversation. And then last year, it was the same conversation as well. I was so adamant about the feelings and values because we were referring to sponsorship of an event. And with that language, I am someone who is very particular about language. And with that language, I didn't want the public to feel like all of a sudden we're making, or we would make an amendment when we did it for the Maryland Theater, for the donut drop. And I'm not saying, I'm not putting it on the same level, so please understand me, I'm a black woman too. And I totally Juneteenth. So I'm not sitting here not understanding the importance of it. I'm not. I just wanted to be clear with the language, and that's
Okay,
why.
do you see the date on that request? So the fact that we're just getting before you now is not.
Well, now, hang on a minute. Now, hang on a
No,
minute.
wait.
We responded to this asking for information, and we never got any
What-
information back.
No, what
We
information
never,
were you asking
we
for?
were looking for a full update on where the dolman was, what the
I
plans were.
sent you that when I
back.
sent, when
We
this
asked
was
for-
sent.
we
I
asked
sent
for
you an
this.
update about
We
the
didn't get it
Dolman
till, we
Blackhead.
didn't get it till early April.
No, not.
Brittany,
by
have you ever gotten anything?
Brittany wouldn't have gotten it. It wasn't for her.
Brittany sent it.
No, I sent the sponsorship, the Downtown Event Grant sponsorship.
And did we get anything back? See, that is,
But I sent a formal request along with an update on the Dome and Black Heritage Museum last year, the end of last year.
Where y'all at?
for what, okay.
Well,
You
where y'all
just need to tell us what to do.
I don't think that a lot of this at the moment is productive for the body. And I'm just gonna say, as a member who has been here for some time, any number of these events, which are good and important events for our community, have, by their own volition, over time, reached this natural progression. And this body has made those decisions in the past. And all I'm saying is, on these two items, at least for me, at this moment, have reached that point in time where we have to make that decision. I mean, the July 4th celebration reached that decision probably 12 years ago, right? The Blues Fest reached that decision at some point. August Overfest reached that decision at some point. And what I'm saying is, all of those events were popular, broadly important, attended events by all types of folks in our community.
Yes.
And were petered out over a period of time by, the involvement. You were with August Oktoberfest, right?
Yeah, but I don't like that term.
Peter.
Oh. So, I just think that we're at this junction. I feel like we were there before. I just think we've got to make that decision. I don't see them, and I said it last year, I don't see them in the same boat as an entity that comes in with an idea of an event,
Like a 5K.
yes.
I
Yes.
agree
They're just
wholeheartedly.
not, that's just not the same.
Not the same.
And I certainly don't want to look back at Brittany and say, your office has got to shoulder this somehow, because that's not that staff's responsibility to do either.
Right.
We need to figure out a way to work with this organization or whomever that important organization is to come in with that important event that's important to this community and say, okay, what body do you have, you know, to continue that effort that we can participate in the resources with to make that happen? Or we say, hey, you know, this isn't something we're going to do, and
I think that it is something that we should do. I agree. I
Well,
agree with you.
I agree with the 10-5. However, I don't want it to come out of the sponsorship event monies. Where it comes out of, I don't know. But I also want to have, the city run the Juneteenth, but more of a collaboration, more of a partnership getting together to put this one together.
The
City
same
staff
way
and-
that the Blues Fest used to run.
Yeah, more of a,
Because
more of a.
the
I don't
city
know
put
about that. I
together
wasn't
the
here.
community group. Well, the city put together a group of community-minded people, even though the majority of the heavy lifting was on the city, but they had reach within the community to get volunteers.
So what it
She
sounds
does-
like, oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you guys are already planned and ready to go for this year, correct?
Planned, the amount of entertainment we have, no, that's not planned.
Okay.
It's discussed.
Okay.
And understand that the Dome and Black Heritage Museum is a sponsor in this also.
Oh, I was just
They-
asking where
But-
where it was, if you needed collaborators or, you know, folks to help. That's why I
Oh,
was
yeah,
asking.
if you go on the
was it planned?
website, you will have a list of the upcoming meetings and what people can help with. Financially, though, it's difficult to try to, and as you've mentioned, it's a month out, a little over a month out. It's difficult when you don't have that support. What the city does get when they sponsor events, they get sponsors. Businesses are more eager to sponsor something that the city is doing versus the Dome and Black Heritage Museum. So understand that that's hard for us.
I think
But
that's a fair assessment.
Yeah,
I
think so too.
I've said on both sides of this thing.
Councilmember Sherman, what you gonna say?
Well, it sounds to me like probably the majority, I would agree with Councilmember McIntyre and Councilmember Alshire that we need to decide if this is something, and I think we should, as a city, take on at least a collaboration with Juneteenth.
No,
maybe-
I think the city
and then
should take
maybe
it on
later
because it's a
with
federal holiday.
The other conversation with New Year's thing as well, but I agree, we need to carve it out of a separate, this can't be considered a sponsorship event, right? This has gotta be like a, I don't know if we create a holiday fund or what we do, Michelle, but, you know,
So what would that amount be?
For me, 10-5, the $10,500.
Every year?
Every year?
Oh, for every year, oh.
Right, because
'Cause we're
remember
gonna
you
put
said you
something
wanted
in
to
the budget
ask
for
us
next
to
year.
This isn't
put them in
going-
for every year, just as well as the library and some other ones.
I think it's
well,
unfair
yeah.
to
Continues.
make that decision right now because it bears some discussion. You all need to put this on an agenda for you all to sit down and really think hard about it.
But we're trying to get
See,
to a
because-
number right now for you.
Well,
So-
and she
My
was
number
at
right
that
now is
number,
10.5
but
right
you
now.
all wanted her to commit
For this event,
every year.
for this
Well, I think
Juneteenth festivities for next month.
She was talking in reference to the next one.
Yeah, I knew what she was
I
saying.
know too.
Right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Ashar, where you at?
I don't think I'm at the same place I was last year.
All right, a yes.
I was fine with the full amount last year, because I just don't see it as
It's,
a 5K.
right, it's not a 5K,
Kendall,
yeah, I'm in favor.
you know.
Brady?
Well, this is the first time as a councilman that I've experienced any of this. So I don't have the background that all of you have. What's running through my head is at a much higher level than one celebration versus another, or one holiday versus another. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what the percentage is of the overall budget, it's still taxpayer dollars. And I know, because I was part of it, when we had the discussion about the amounts for the sponsorship grants, which I'm hearing this is not gonna be, but in general, there were some rules
Yes, it was.
And there's an application process, there's specific information that's required from the entity that's gonna receive the money. There's budgetary information that has to be provided up front, detailed budgetary information, and then a follow-up of how the actual versus the budget occurred with the event. And I'm just summarizing what I think is probably 2 pages of rules, the strings, if you will, that are attached to the money. So I guess my question is, does that apply here as well? Should it apply here as well?
It's gonna have to.
Because,
I thought so, but it seems
There has to be transparency.
that,
Yes.
yeah, that's,
And no matter what,
yeah.
no matter what the
And
event, no matter
there's,
what the
there's one line
celebration.
here on this letter, the only thing I have seen about this personally, because I haven't been here the whole time you all have been here, there's one letter and there's one number for the budget, it's $17,500. There's no description, there's no detail, there's nothing to describe that. And we demand that of every other organization that comes here and asks for
But
money.
there is a detailed budget.
I'm sorry, it's not on
No,
this
it's
piece
not
of
on that
paper.
page. No.
Well, that's all
But
that's in my
you
package.
guys have a detailed budget, correct?
Have, one,
Thing about the fairness.
I mean, if it's conditional on following the rules that were previously set by this body, then given the fact that that's the consensus of the group to move forward at that amount, then that's fine. But I'm very concerned that, you said, that the body set a set of rules, and you can't, I don't believe you should throw them out the window, for the sake of expediency.
I mean, we can put that condition, right? We can say, make sure you provide us the
Well, whatever it is in
budgetary
the
breakdown or what was
community
provided.
engagement sponsorship
I
program
know,
that
we just
approved.
discussed it, and it was emailed to you,
I
yeah.
mean, there's a whole list of things,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
whatever that list
She
is,
should have that.
which is in the application that you
Ah.
received.
Y'all just do too much.
And I mean, it doesn't have to be tonight, you'd have to provide
Again,
it.
but Peter, I need you to understand me when I say that I don't want to have to do this again. I want the city to do this.
All right, we got 3 yeses for 10-5, all right. Right?
Yeah.
All right. You guys moving forward, so put on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm being dismissed. It's,
I mean,
it's
because I
great
feel-
seeing you though. I know
It's great
you gotta
seeing you
keep-
too, but
you
it
gotta
just,
keep
it
the
seemed
bus
like, yeah, I
rolling.
do, and a job to do, and,
Well,
yeah.
thank you all. But we will, I
And I felt
can
really-
email that
thank you.
budget to you, Peter.
Actually,
Actually, to
hold
Michelle
on.
would be amazing, or
I
to
wanna-
Scott.
I wanna
Scott.
send it to Peter.
everything, well, you
All
can,
right,
but if you want it to go anywhere, it'll go to Scott.
fiscal year 2025 budget review, Michelle Hepburn, Chief Financial Officer, Brooke Gardner, Accounting and Budget Manager. I know. Y'all, jump in the middle and y'all. Jump in the middle for fairness.
So, one of the things that we heard earlier was a request for us to review the budget for the ice rink. Given time constraints this evening, I'm gonna ask the whole of the group, do you want us to stop and take a look at the ice rink and the ice rink CIP for what we have built? Or do you want us to try to go ahead and cover health insurance fund and at least the electric fund and some others? Because I am very conscious that we have a full agenda for the rest of the evening.
I would say Councilmember Perini is the one that asked about the
So
ice
wait for him
rink,
to come
so
back in?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
Wait,
I'm
let's talk
okay
about
with-
the health insurance
Sure.
fund.
I don't need,
I don't need, I don't either, but
Okay.
I didn't request it.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
So,
So Councilmember Perini, I was just posing a question in lieu of time, being so sensitive tonight and the packed agenda that we have, to get everybody through to 7 o'clock. We heard earlier about bringing back the ice rink and reviewing the budget, looking at that CIP. We can add that now and hope to like cover it and maybe health insurance or electric. Or we can move forward and try to get health insurance and electric finished and in and come back to ice rink on the 21st.
I don't care.
I think you have 2 years to figure out the ice rink, but
I'm checked out.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure
I'm just
I
making
heard
sure.
a comment, even if you started today, so it sounds like we need to start today, but, or soon,
Nobody else can
but
hear.
maybe not literally today.
Okay.
That's all.
So I want to take a minute and I want to review a fund, and I'm going to talk really high level. It's in section 6, financial projections, and it is the health insurance fund. And a health insurance fund is one of those, it's considered an internal service trust fund, and so we do not really focus a lot of time and attention. I do want to do that this year. It is very important for me that the body, that we all understand. So we have a health insurance fund in section 6, page 34. But I want to talk just what it is and how we get money there, right? So the health insurance fund, the city of Hagerstown is self-insured, meaning we don't necessarily have, we have United Healthcare as our insurance carrier, but we do not pay them premium-based. We have our own defined plan, and in order to fund that plan, what happens is we pay claims on a weekly basis as they are incurred and processed. We also separately put money aside into OPEB, which is a trust, other post-employment benefits. So we're putting money aside in a trust that once a year that we cannot touch. It is our hope and goal that we grow that enough that it works similar to like the police and fire pension, so that you have the separate trust that has enough funding in it that it will cover all retiree costs. We are not there yet. So what we do is at the city, we fund through all of our different funds across the city into here, and we put money into the trust fund and we pay claims as they are incurred. We contract with CBIZ, who's our third party, and they perform the calculations. They tell us the trends. They work with United Healthcare, because that's who our current carrier is, and they give us projections every single year. They give us the projections to tell us where they think we're going to be for the rest of fiscal year 24, based on our trends, other current trends, and fiscal year 25. It's very important that this body knows that I or Brooke are not taking some crystal ball and saying, hey, here's what we're currently paying in claims, let's just put a flat number in. So because we're self-insured, really and truly, to afford the plan and the claims, our costs have increased dramatically. So if we looked from fiscal year 18 to 22, that's a 5-year period, our costs, not including what we put aside in OPEB, averaged 6.5 million. If we look at the new average for 3 years, and you're not gonna necessarily see all the history, but you'll see total expenditure line on page 34. So if we look at fiscal year 23, 24, 25, just those 3 years, the same cost now, on average, is 9.2 million. It's a $3 million spread on average a year. This is important. Why? How do you make changes to this? A couple of ways. One, we can make changes to the overall health plan itself, right? Try to identify, and we do this through a healthcare committee, and we have all the unions participate, retirees participate, non-management participates. And we talk about these all the time and every year. And we have been, for years, sitting collectively as a group, identifying ways to help find savings without detrimentally impacting the health insurance that our employees have. So we're working through all that. So one of the things that might change is, you pay $75 for a copay to go to the ER. What does it mean if we go to 100? How does that impact the rising costs and trends we are seeing? So again, one of the ways to control the costs, right, to make changes to the plan. The other two ways is the employer, the city of Hagerstown, has to fund more, and/or 3, the employees and retirees have to fund more. That's really what goes into this plan. The city, as an employer, funds it, the employees fund it, and retirees fund it. Everything else comes out.
Who makes the decision of whether it's the city that funds it or the employees that fund it?
So that's an excellent question, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this
You
conversation.
get the prize for this presentation.
Employee premiums at the city of Hagerstown have not changed since July of 2010. 14 years with no premium increases. Okay, so how is that derived? We have 4 different union contracts, and there is language in every single union contract that limits the ability on what you can and can't do with the employee premiums.
So there's 6 members on the healthcare committee, correct?
So each group can have 2 representatives, so 2 from each of the union groups, plus there's 2 retirees, 2 non-unions, and then myself is the.
Dawn.
Yes. Dawn Francis is the HR director, Amy Dreisbach is the benefits coordinator, and really, Human Resources runs that committee, and we always have CBIZ
So is
that
the
comes to our meetings.
Is the committee a recommending committee or is the committee a determination committee?
The way the contract reads, their determination committee.
But the healthcare committee, so we can have groups sit around and they have these conversations, and the members ask very detailed questions, and the participation on the committee is good, as long as we can get people present in the room. And those people can be very knowledgeable and can ask all the questions. But the reality is, you get in a room and you sit, and you're 2 members of a collective bargaining group, and you may think, man, I'm looking at all these numbers, I've been on this committee for like 2 or 3 years, we know the trends nationally. So the reason we're having this conversation is we were told fiscal year 25 is a 19% increase. I do not have all of that accounted for in what you see in the budget, because we were anticipating sharing those costs in some manner and achieving some savings. And we have, and they've been great. But it's really difficult, because what we are doing to employees is we put 2 members on this committee, and they may very well feel like one of the ways to go is, hey, I would prefer to raise premiums. It's pre-tax, premiums haven't changed in 14 years, right?
But then they go back to the rank and
understand all
file.
that, but you're asking 2 people to go back to a union and a collective group and ask them to make a change outside of what's in their contract. That's like a rock and a hard place, right? And so for years, and this isn't, right, this isn't new, but we have been very fortunate. CBIZ has told us year over year, we at the city are not experiencing the same trends that is seen on a national level or even a global level, right? Everybody has dramatically had health insurance costs. What has happened to us in the last 3 years? You know, some thought the first year it was like coming out of COVID, things are reopened, everybody's like in a frantic to suddenly have all these procedures. But that's not the reality of what's really driving a lot of our costs. We now are receiving a larger number of claims that are high claimants. We have what's called stop loss, so it's an extra insurance and an extra premium we pay, and we say, okay, we want, just like any other insurance that you get, we want our threshold to be $250,000. If any individual claim in a year exceeds that, we get reimbursed from that insurance carrier. Well, the great news is, we're getting more reimbursements, and you can see that here when you see stop-loss reimbursement dollars coming back. But the bad news is, it's only coming back after we have hit $250,000 in claims. So I'm mentioning all of this because we are struggling. And we're to the point where we realistically have to have discussions outside the box. What can we do? What can we change? We need, right, the goal is to keep a very robust health insurance plan and to keep a retiree benefit. That's the goals. How do we get there? We don't get there without change. And I know it's not a popular conversation. A lot of focus has been, Michelle, so if you look on page 34, and I'm not really, and I apologize for those at home, I'm not really covering the numbers because I wanted to talk theory. Halfway down the page, you'll see where it says transfers from other funds and transfers to other funds. We have a fund balance and retained earnings policy that was adopted. And in the years of a surplus, as long as 3 criteria are met, we can transfer that surplus or a portion of that surplus back to the fund. So what happens is CBIZ says, okay, Michelle Hepburn, you picked this health insurance plan, you're either employee plus one, employee family. They give us a premium equivalent every single year. And so not just employee, they give us a premium equivalent. And then the employee premium stays where it is. The employer portion, so what happens on a weekly basis, we process payroll, and it knows Michelle Hepburn picked this plan, here's the cost. We move it from the general fund, because I'm in accounting and under the general fund, and we move it over to the health insurance fund. And that shows as a premium revenue city. When you look at accounting, if you look at my detailed budget, you will see a line, an expense, that says health insurance, right? And those will match. What comes out from an expense for me goes into the health insurance fund as a revenue to help pay those incoming costs. So that this fund is the single source of all the expenses. And again, the reality is the national trends are catching up. The sad news is the national trends are not decreasing, right? Prescriptions cost continues to skyrocket. You know, healthcare itself is not immune. Everything else, Michelle, everything else is going up. How can we afford to pay? Everything else is going up, right? The city of Hagerstown is an employer. If we're going to contribute at this level, then we have to take a look at some other big dollar things where we can achieve the savings so that we can put more money here. Because at the rate that we're going, this fund is going to.
Say it.
Yeah, the fund is gonna go into negative,
Well, I mean,
right?
it's,
We can't fund at the level at which we are in this fund without changes, without our employee group being willing to come to the table and help us make those changes.
yeah, you can't, I mean, we're bleeding the fund dry, is what we're doing, because our costs are more than $1 million over. We're subsidizing that by adding in $1 million, which we don't have to keep up with, and you can't keep doing that and keep the premiums at a static figure and expect to build a robust fund reserve to account for the escalation in costs over a long period, like regular insurance companies do.
Right,
We're not doing what regular insurance companies do.
right.
We're literally allowing ourselves, I mean, we're using our reserve that we're supposed to be building up to bleed the fund dry while we're putting money into it to make it look like, falsely look like, it's staying solvent. And in 3 years, it's going to be insolvent.
Or we're gonna be adding all those costs in the general fund, and guess what? To balance the general fund, we're gonna raise taxes, or are we going to reduce costs somewhere else? But again, remember our conversations when we started, when we talked about the general fund, like 66%, I shouldn't do this, from memory from a few weeks ago. But 2/3 of all the expenses in the general fund, 2/3 of all of our expenses are in the employee side. Salaries, wages, benefits. And this is one of those benefits. It's a very large, robust benefit. And we are fortunate, you know, look, when you go to do something, do you think, oh man, here comes a deductible? Yes, but at the end of the day, I beg employees to talk to other people. Talk to other people. Their premiums have all gone up. And not just that, their deductibles have gone up, their co-pays have gone up. We're not, I would like to say that the city of Hagerstown is so special that we are unique to this problem, but we're not.
And it's only getting worse with the other mandates that are being sent down when it comes to FMLA and all these other things that we've got to compensate for.
Big changes.
Yes. So not asking for action, asking for some feedback or thoughts, asking for
Well,
support eventually, because change has to happen.
And it's going to happen in the negotiation process.
I don't know what amount of
I don't know.
I don't know what amount of thought, and I feel like I'm revisiting 10 years ago. I don't know what amount of thought this body sitting at this table, which will really be the next administration, won't be us, is going to be able to provide if the committee, as we have constructed it, is a determination committee, meaning this body isn't the entity that's really making that decision.
Right.
That's how we've constructed this to function at this point.
At this point.
That doesn't seem appropriate.
Well, this city made that decision some years ago.
Decades.
Okay. Two rights don't make a wrong. They make an airplane. In other words, it was wrong.
So-
before,
Rights don't make a wrong, make it
So-
wrong again.
I'm gonna ask a really, really dumb question. Because we function as a self-insured system,
Yes.
would one of those determinations, if we do reach a point of insolvency, would one of those considerations be to go out to a non-self-insured system?
We absolutely could explore those options. I will tell you, unless things have dramatically changed, being self-insured as a larger employee fiscally usually is much more beneficial and less costly.
If you keep up with your plan, it certainly is.
Right, like
Yeah, more
as a
control
larger
over it.
corporation. But if you're hamstrung.
You know, if you hamstrung yourself.
Right.
Because otherwise, those for-profit or even the ones that are nonprofit, you know, insurance providers, they've already figured all this out all along. And in addition, you're paying all of their overhead, which we don't currently pay as a self-insured insurance plan. When you pay a third-party administrator,
And so one of the other things, right, you know, I talked about these high dollar claims and we're getting stop-loss reimbursement back. But what happens every time you have insurance and you actually use it? What happens? Our cost for that stop-loss carrier dramatically increased in '24. And absolutely is gonna increase double digits again. Again, we're not paying what we would, if we were premium-based, but again, double digits increase. And will absolutely happen again for '25. And it's nobody's fault on these high claimants. We have just had tragedies. We have been so fortunate
Well,
for
that's-
years.
that's the risk model that you take
It is,
when you
is,
self-insure.
it is.
You either
And they
have,
tell us that every year.
you have good years, you have bad years, and
We've
the
had some bad
years
years
can wipe out
lately.
everything.
So do you feel that 21 and 22 are anomalies over that over that 10-year period? Because I'm looking at,
22?
well, I'm looking at 23 actual, and the numbers are markedly different on the positive and negative side of things
So like if we
than
look at the
21 and 22.
expenditures, so look at the total expenditures, because the total expenditures is covering things like the medical claims, claim reserves. It's all things to do with the plan. The stop loss reinsurance expense, again, what we are paying the insurance courier for that stop loss. And then wellness program, we are running that, the OPEB trust. So again, if you look at fiscal year 22, 8 million in expenditures. But we had additional money, and I highly recommend it to this group at that point in time, that we put the additional money into our OPEB trust plan, right? Because we are trying to build the funded percentage in that plan. So we did. 8 million. And if you look at years prior to that, and you can't see it in this book, but if we would pull out all of our ACVRs or our older budget books, fiscal year 21, same line, same, all the same across, 6.7 million. Fiscal year 20 was just under 7 million. Fiscal year 19 is at 7.8. Fiscal year 18 was 6.8. So 6.8 to 7.8, we were starting to see those climbs, right? 6.8 to 7.8, $1 million climb. And then COVID hit. Expenses came back to 7 million. And it slowly, fiscal year 21, 6.7. Fiscal year 22, you can see 8 million. Fiscal year 23, 10 million. And again, that 10 million number, everybody's going, Michelle, you're the, you transfer money out of this fund. Yes, only prior surpluses. I didn't, that is not when your fund balance dropped, right? It is that 8 million to 10 million, that $2 million difference in expenses that dropped the fund balance. And fiscal year 25, coming off of 23, looking 24 is really probably worse than what I got in these projections right now. Looking at what we're seeing come through on a weekly basis, that's just my rough guess without coming back to CBIZ. So 25 is supposed to be that plus an additional almost $1.2 million.
I mean, the reality is, as a self-insured entity, you still have to go through the same gyrations
Yes.
as a company that hires, that basically pays premium to insurance company. It's just that we have to go through the gyrations that the insurance company goes through. So when they have higher claims, your premiums go up.
Right.
And then the organization has to say, okay, how are we going to handle the increase in premiums? Okay, so as you mentioned a few things, deductibles can be greater, co-pays can be greater, out-of-pockets, and then what is the split of the premium between the employer and the employee? I mean, the city, as an employer, has to do all of those things, should be doing all of those things. I don't know what the breakdown is, because I haven't been through this before, but we also have the additional issue, as you mentioned, of several collective bargaining groups that it's in writing, it's kind of carved in stone until those contracts are up for renewal, which I think is next fiscal year.
One currently expires this June, and it's, negotiations are underway, and then 3 the following fiscal year, so yes, by next June, 2020.
Do those agreements, and this might be naive to ask, and I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to it.
You haven't been through it before, so
Yeah, so do those agreements dictate both the cost, the premiums and whatnot, and the coverage? Do they dictate both, or do we have any autonomous control over either piece?
So at least, there is premium language and limitation in all 4. 2 of the 4 have limitations, plus says, will not change from the 2017 premium rate.
I think,
All of them are a little bit different, but then it talks about, all of the contracts have language about healthcare committee and having a 3 out of 5 vote to make changes to the level plan.
Yep.
So, but again, to the level plan, it,
So it doesn't sound like there's really anything that we can do to help the
Where,
situation.
where it's gonna come into play is during negotiations next year. Because obviously, this is something,
the next minute.
you know, this is something we're going to be talking about with the body when negotiations start next year.
what time of year is that, Mr. Mish?
They start, November, December.
Of this
It will
calendar
be
year?
this year, yes. Because the contracts expire June 30 of 25.
Yeah,
Yes,
but-
25.
But the budget process for the next fiscal year starts
yes,
a
Yeah.
couple weeks after that.
we know.
Okay, so that's why I
They
asked.
used to not start
That's why I
until
asked what
March.
the timing was. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, this is the first time publicly sounding the alarm that this conversation needs to
Well,
come sooner than later.
And
with
I,
the health and
and I
retirement.
think we've been having
Right.
conversations,
When-
but maybe not sitting here at this table.
No,
Right,
not,
exactly.
no, that's why
But
we
with the
wanted to do
committee.
When you
this.
first
Yeah.
made your overall presentation, the meeting after March 31st, you mentioned healthcare
I did,
and what's
Yes.
coming.
I did.
As did I,
Yeah.
In your,
yes,
in your
you both-
remarks.
Yes.
Yeah, in your remarks.
Yep.
and in the budget message.
Yep.
Yeah. The last question I have on this is CBIZ. I mean, as the third-party administrator, they're like, you know, any other consultant that's supposed to be giving,
Yes.
do a study or whatever and know what's the trends are and what's going on nationally, statewide, so forth. When do we get that information?
From CBIZ?
Yeah, I mean, aren't they our
So CBIZ,
kind of like, we gotta, like,
So
just to
CBIZ
give an analogy, we got a,
sure.
we got a presentation from what's it called, New Gen on
Water and wastewater
proposed rates.
So,
Doesn't CBIZ, won't CBIZ chime in on this?
so CBIZ actually does, they provide information and they, participate in every single health insurance committee meeting. They literally are the ones who will say, hey, here is a menu plan on things that you could change in your health insurance, that you're one of the few health insurances that we are aware still do this, right? So they won't suggest that we quadruple our deductibles, but they may say, hey, you know, the trends a couple years ago increased deductibles by a couple hundred, or the trends, and we talk about menu options every single year in the healthcare committee, every single year. CBIZ does a projection. I try to press hard to get information in January, and then I press hard to get better number projections in March. I mean, I'm down to the wire by the time they redo it. And again, they are presenting those, and they present trends and projections, where we project it and where we're actually running in every single health insurance. So if that's one of the things that we want CBIZ to come and actually do a presentation to this body on, so you can see a different level of detail on our health insurance and our trends, I'm sure that's something that can be accommodated.
Well, I mean, I just wouldn't want to say, oh, we gotta come up with this money, so we gotta do this, we gotta find this revenue or that revenue, without a really definitive study, statement, whatever word you wanna use. Just like with every other rate that's set. If I could, I'm not sure I heard an answer, but the discussion that Councilman Alshire mentioned about the committee being the definitive final answer versus mayor and council. what is the benefit of that versus a different way of doing it?
I mean, the difference, the benefit of a committee doing it versus mayor and council? Is that what you're?
Making the final decisions. What you were talking about earlier.
I don't think there is an answer. to that
Committee makes
question.
the final decision.
I'm saying, what's the benefit of that versus
Of the committee?
this body?
Because the committee are the directly affected individuals of changes to the plan.
Right.
So the benefit to the committee is that the committee makes the determination what those changes may be because they're most directly impacted by what that decision is.
Okay, so, and again, not knowing the, having the 20 years of experience of it, so you have a group of people who are directly impacted, wouldn't that create a bias?
Certainly.
So once again, I'll ask the question.
I think that's why
What's
the.
That's why it's in the
benefit of it?
I think that's why it's tied to a 3/5 vote necessary for any changes.
And to be clear, mayor and council are the ultimate approving authority on the contracts.
Yeah, but that's only after everything has been
I know.
decided.
He's gonna roll, he's gonna scoot back down.
He is.
All right.
I'm just trying to finishing to answer the question, so, okay. All right, so let's flip to,
That binding arbitration and mediation and things like that tied into them.
yes. We know.
Okey-doke.
And I'm not gonna say anything that's gonna win me any points today, so. And it's just, things are the way they are.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
right.
understand.
The city has made that decision.
Okay.
So let's look at the electric fund. I know we got stormwater and golf, and we can attempt to come back and land on both of those on May 21st. But let's talk about the electric fund, section 6, page 16. And again, in the financial projection section, we have 2 years of history, fiscal year 22 and 23, which is how we ended the audit. The middle 2 columns then are the fiscal year 24, our current year, revised budget and estimated actual, followed by fiscal year 25 proposed budget. So, I think, let's look at fiscal year 25 proposed budget. You see total service charges is at 28.4 million. The biggest difference there is that we have a new wholesale power agreement, and Nathan is somewhere.
He's right
So
behind.
if I say the wrong word, he'll stop me. We enter into a wholesale contract, and it is 75 to 76% always of our total service charges. And when we negotiate that wholesale power contract, whatever rates we get, we pass along. There have been years where with the contract, we were able to successfully negotiate lower rates, so we decreased the wholesale power rate. Now, when we talk electric, there's more that goes into your total electric bill than just that charge. It is simply by far our largest revenue and expense because that is the contract. We are paying the wholesale provider to provide that to us. And as a reminder, the new contract is going into place effective June 1st, so just a couple days away, it seems like. June 1st, 2024 through December 31, 2026. The rate at that time is going to be $54.05 per megawatt hour. Using these, I know I use my accounting nerdy language all the time, but I'm gonna have to decipher some of the others, I'm not so good. So because we already know the expense is going up, we know the wholesale revenue is going to go up. So let's come on down, see if I'm lying to you. Under operating expenses, you see total operating expenses in fiscal year 25 budget, almost 28.5 million, compared to fiscal year 24 budget of 26.7. So again, and you'll see that purchase power line, we have it by line by itself, so you can see, is definitely by far and large the biggest impact dollar-wise, right? And the biggest increase year over year. So 28.4 million in service charges, 28.4 million, you can kind of see where I'm going. I'm gonna sound like a broken record today. Operating expenses, and that is before we get to some other key things. So the electric fund is governed by the PSC, Public Services Commission. And one of the things that we are looking to do is something that we have not done in many, many years, and that's go to the Public Services Commission on our cost of service retail rates. Because the wholesale, again, covers our contract to pay that third party. It doesn't leave us a lot of revenue, nor a lot of other room for all the other operating expenses that we have, because we do still have staff, right? And we do a lot of things ourselves. If that rate, that cost of service retail rate, has not changed in what, a decade?
No,
2 decades.
20 years.
Oh, see, I'm forgetting myself at the table tonight, I'm so sorry. Hasn't changed, but we still have employees and operating expenses and other things that are increasing, salaries, wages, health insurance costs, right? What's gonna happen? Same thing. So, you just hey, man, it is Tuesday fun day. So halfway down the page, you'll see it says increase, decrease in retained earnings. Because we are a municipality, and this is an enterprise fund, meaning your service charges are supposed to cover your operating expenses so that we don't use your taxpayer dollars. Have to be careful. Again, we're regulated by PSC, and even though it is an enterprise fund, it does not mean we operate like any other for-profit individual company, because we are still under the overall governing of, we are a municipality, and as a municipality governmental agency does not exist to make money. As we've heard over and over. So anyway, $86,000 loss, increase, decrease in retained earnings. So for those of you who have a for-profit business, that's how much anticipated to lose in '25. But again, it's way better than we ended the year in fiscal year '23. We had a loss of $611,000. Way better than where we think we're going to end current year, fiscal year '24, at $461,000. So better, but still a loss. So you can kind of hear where we're going with this story. Then let's come down. Net surplus deficit. So I'm telling you about their income, gain and loss. Now let's talk about the impact to the overall cash. Because maybe there's something else happening that can help with the cash. Nope, look at that, it's going the wrong direction. Minus $33.55. So, story to Nathan, who's sitting behind me.
In thousands.
But nope.
It's in thousands. Yeah.
3,355,000.
Yes. So, if fiscal year '24 does not turn around, and if fiscal year '25 we are not able to do anything more with our rates, we are potentially looking at being at a negative cash balance in the electric fund by June 30th next year. And this is a contract we're currently negotiating. And I know we were gonna cover some capital and CIP, and Brooke had a couple identified in the capital, we're not, in the capital project section, right? But here's the thing. If you look at page 17, there's a snapshot of all of the capital projects with C numbers. If you remember from last week, those C numbers, you go back to the capital improvement section, you look up those C numbers under a light, there'll be one for every single one. Nathan, is there anything you want to add, unless they have specific questions?
So the wholesale rate is 5.405 cents per kilowatt hour. That's how I think of power, kilowatt, right? Divided by 1,000, right?
Correct.
So basically 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And is there a markup on that, on just the power? Because there's two parts to the bill, right? There's the power charge, and then there's the distribution charge.
Well, on our bill, there's the 5.4 cents is, covers energy. There's also some pass-through charges that cover the capacity and generation portion.
Okay.
And some distribution. That total accumulated value is then used to calculate the monthly purchase power cost adjustment, which is applied to our customers' bills. So on our city customer bills, you'll see an energy rate, where a portion of that 4.442 cents, I believe it is, that's our base rate. That portion goes towards the purchase power, and then the remaining funds we use to operate.
And then the purchase power cost adjustment, you'll see on the bill as well, that makes up the rest. So where the purchase power exceeded that 4.42 cents.
And
that's
in
where that-
some months it's a plus, and some months it's a decrease.
Right.
That adjustment doesn't, it's
Correct.
not just
Depends on
one
the
direction.
usage.
Correct.
Right, okay. And why hasn't the retail rate been adjusted with the PSC as contracts renew?
It's an excellent question.
Management decisions in the past,
Okay,
before me.
so,
That's what we're talking about.
so now you're proposing to do this on a more regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely.
We would
Okay.
like
And-
Nathan to get on a 3 to
A
5.
3 to 5 year rate plan.
Just like we're doing for all the other
Well,
utilities.
I mean, it seems to me like it should match whatever your energy contract from the generator is gonna be, right? So you said that goes till 2026,
Yes.
Right.
so 2 years, right? Okay, so, if you're gonna make that request, why not, I mean, I know you said, 86,000 is a lot better than 611,000 loss or $461,000 loss, but why not try to balance that as close to zero or even into the plus side to make up for the $3 million cash deficit?
I think that's the goal of what's going to be requested, as Nathan works
Oh,
with.
so this doesn't
consult-
reflect that?
So,
That does
Okay.
not
no,
reflect
because
that.
Okay, okay.
because this,
I get
so
it.
if you look at the rates, you'll see 0 across at the top, right?
Okay, okay.
And that is because it is one of, the electric utility at the city of Hagerstown is one of the only ones that is outside this body being able to set the rate. We have to go
Right.
to the PSC, right? It's a higher power.
And you can see some of the reasoning behind the losses. If you look at the 22 actual, it's the fifth line down on page 16, total service charges. So we sold 24,558,000 in fiscal year 2022.
Mm-hmm.
The next year, people were saving energy. We're not getting cold winters. There's not,
Right.
the heat isn't on as much, the air conditioning's not running as much. There's $3 million less in sales. 25% of that $3 million goes towards our operating.
Okay,
Excellent.
okay,
Thank you,
Thank
Nathan.
you, Nathan.
okay. So this is subject to change based on the PSC request?
Sure hope so.
Absolutely.
Because it looks to me like the bottom line is $5.5 million. I don't want to say in the hole, but I'll say in the hole.
And if you look back in prior budgets, you're gonna be like, Michelle, you mentioned it in
Yes, sir.
passing before, and you didn't go into this much detail. Because it was
cash
always in a
this year.
future year.
Understood.
It was never in our most,
Right.
it wasn't imminent in the
5.6.
next 12 months, right?
Projecting
Okay.
2.6 next year.
And
Our cash. will be
Nay, in the
deficit,
hole,
yeah.
$750,000 in the hole. Okay.
the two, I guess, unique features of the electric utility fund, different from the water and sewer utility fund, is one, we don't go to the PSC for water and sewer.
For water.
Number one. And two, we write down arrearage on the electric fund differently than we write down arrearage on the water and sewer fund.
We're required to.
Because we're required to account for that arrearage that never gets paid differently.
That's correct.
Right.
And
Which is important when, at times, we're carrying larger amount in arrearage during the course of the year on the utility fund.
But at the same time, the Public Service Commission is not going to want any utility, public or otherwise, to get into a cash position that it's not solvent.
Oh, I know, that's why I'm saying those two unique things,
Right.
as they apply to that review process,
Right.
are different from,
one of the other things that we didn't mention, I was remiss when we first started it, but everybody here has, heard it several times. Also, in the electric fund, unlike all the others, we can't grow our base. We can't grow our customer we can grow our customers, but it's within a defined corporate boundary that is in no way, shape, or form our City of Hagerstown corporate.
Right.
And it was set in 1940.
40s,
It's the
70s.
it's the 1940.
It's,
One.
it's,
Three
it's
boundary.
the, it's the
Donna says
historic
one.
It
boundary.
was set in the 60s, actually.
Yeah.
but
Donna
they-
said
they-
one, 41.
Yeah.
It's 41 or 46 on that, because I
Something
asked
like that.
PE to
Oh, Madonna.
change mine.
Oh, Donna too.
I know, man, she's the greatest record.
How'd that go?
They said,
All right,
So what is the time schedule for,
even though within
Public
6
Service
feet of my
Commission.
property. in
We're
that
fine
open
tuning, fine tuning the numbers now, and we'll need to generate some,
Within 6 feet of my
and
property.
compose some testimony. We're hoping by the end of the month to have the file with the commission.
And how quickly do they act?
But I could be fed from the tower.
30, 60 days?
It,
we're
I-
not sure
yeah,
because
we're not
Say
quite
60 days.
sure.
Yeah, we haven't, I mean.
we haven't done it in 20 years and we're hopeful, but we just don't know all the information.
20 years ago it was 6 months. I don't know where it's
On a work
today.
session in a couple of weeks.
It'll depend a lot on the questions
on the work
and
session.
inquiries and how far they really dig down into our numbers.
Donna knows.
Okay.
I know, I'm rushing. It's a lot of information, and it's not because it's not important and we don't want to share it, but I am very cognizant of your time crunch, so I appreciate it. So while Brooke and I are here, we'll cover the bond issue. And we're doing this a little backwards. Typically, we would come, we would sit, we'd say, hey, we have all these projects, they were in the budget, right? Yes, see? Good news here, good news. We're gonna have to have happy. And we would sit with this body, sometimes one meeting would do it, sometimes two. We would discuss those projects if everybody was still good to move forward with bond financing of those projects. Also at that time, staff would ask permission to start working with both our bond counsel, which is Funk and Bolton, and with our financial advisor, which is Davenport. A little backwards in all this, right? And I know this is going to be a new bond issue and a new experience for many, because we haven't done a full public sale bond issue in several years. So we've already, at this table, last March, sat with both our financial advisors and Funk and Bolton. Actually, Lindsay did the majority of the presentation that night. We authorized a short-term bond anticipation note for the parking deck. And when we did that, we acknowledged that we were moving forward with it and coming back to discuss bond issue for the field house. So now here we are, wanting to get that fresh in everybody's memory. Why? Because the next time you meet, May 21st, we're asking to introduce an ordinance for the field house. Brooke, do you want to go over, and then I'll hit some dates for them. Do you want to go over, like, page 2 of your memo?
So the chart on page 2 is a chart of the rating categories. The city has ratings with the first 2 columns, Moody's and Standard and Poor's. Moody's, we're at AA3, which is the 4th one down, and Standard and Poor were AA, which is the 3rd one down. So then moving across, what that means is the city has a very strong capacity to meet its financial commitments.
And one of the things that the rating agencies liked most was that we had strong fiscal policies in place. They were very complimentary of our administration's willingness to look at new revenue streams and increase current revenue streams within your capabilities, right? Because it's easy to say, we're always going to just cut costs, and we're always going to cut costs. But the reality is, there's only so much you can cut. You have to be able to grow in both directions. They like to see that. Our biggest struggle was on the amount, the small, in their opinion, the small amount that we had funded in our police and fire pension. It is going to probably be our largest hurdle when we talk with them again, right? Fund is still good, we're still funding it, we've made changes in the plan, but again, it's one of the things that they look at. Still very highly rated.
A quick question on that. Would a difference between an AA3 and an AA2 make a substantial, Moody's make us any substantial difference in the rate?
It could, dependent upon what financial institutions actually respond to the bid.
And-
So every financial institution has their own rating system for these,
Right,
right?
right.
I don't know that it would be huge, but it would be unfavorable to have a downgrade, even if it only moved a little bit.
I'm just thinking because Standard is one step higher than Moody's. We are with Standard one step higher than Moody's.
And it looks that way, and the chart that we provided, again, was because we know and we acknowledge that, you know, public issuance is new to a lot sitting at the table. But you see kind of how it's grouped together?
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
It's almost like
That's why I
they,
asked the question.
because
They are grouped together.
each of the rating agencies have very different philosophies in what they're doing evaluating rating.
Okay. I mean, that's why I asked the question, because AA 3, 2, and 1 are, in this chart anyhow, lumped together. That's why I asked if it would make a substantial difference. Okay, thank you.
All right, so what is going to be asked is, May 21st is going to be an introduction of an ordinance for the field house only, which is the new bond issue. Whew, can't believe I'm going to say this, 15.95 million. Having heart palpitations.
You're gonna love it, you're gonna love it when it's done.
Then May 28th, we're going to adopt that ordinance. And I did not remember this, but our brilliant and fantastic and fabulous bond counsel, Lindsay Rader, has put in writing to me, Michelle, when we sat with your group and I wrote the ordinances and they adopted them, those ordinances covered the ban and the refinancing and the refunding of the ban
At the same time?
at the same time.
Yes.
Oh,
And look, I'm not double checking Lindsay, because she is like good.
that's what you do.
I mean, Kristen, do you want to send her a question? Then on July 16th, so I just want to point that out, because we do the ordinance, but when we come back July 16th for the resolution, it will be field house, new money, 15.95 million, and refunding the short-term ban that we have for parking, which is 10.6.
Okay. Together.
Thank you all.
She's getting out of here.
She loves this part of the year, you know?
Thank you, Michelle and Brooke.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, request for proposals, grants management portal, we have Chris Simmerling, Economic Development Specialist. Hi, Chris.
Afternoon.
Good evening.
All right, so
Evening, Chris, it's evening.
I'll try to keep this fast for you guys then. So I'm here today to try and ask for a request for proposals for a grants management portal for our department to basically modernize our current grants processes for our Invest Hagerstown, Spring Sprouts, PEP programs, and a few other ones as well. Right now, we're doing everything paper and PDF, and this is just gonna make things a lot more efficient, make my desk a lot cleaner, just overall improve the process for everyone.
Yes.
Just going over a quick timeline, if mayor and council approve, we'll post the RFP on May 29th. Deadline for submittals will be early August. We would review the qualified proposals August to September, and then look at a consent agenda item in September.
Thank you.
The only quick question I have is this portal specific to your department? Because there are a lot of grants across the whole city.
So this would just be our specific department grants, so our Invest Hagerstown, Part of
So it
Economic
wouldn't work
Progress.
for other grants and other,
So we are the lead grant provider for the city, currently for our business community. At this time, this is like our five
so
suppression
public
system
engagement gives a grant, for example.
No, that's different.
That's different.
That's different, it wouldn't work in
Well,
this.
This is giving money away, not bringing money in. This is giving money away, managing the giving of money out of the grants.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
You good, Councilmember?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
We're good.
thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for stopping by. Like, you bring me to the table and tell me you good. I went through my presentation. They have City Code, Chapter 117 revisions, trash and recycling, and Jim Bender, a city engineer, will be with us for the next 3 days.
Good afternoon. With the recent changes that we made with the trash and recycling collection program, we realized that we need to make some changes to the city code that talks about those services, because, you know, with the move toward automated collection and issuing new trash carts and telling people everything has to fit in that cart, the existing code doesn't say that. It says that you can set out loose bags. It talks about trash cans and things that we are trying to move away from. So, working with the city attorney, we just made that change in the code and went through the definitions and made some other cleanup clarification things. And the red line that the city attorney came up with is attached to the memo. But that is basically it. It's basically just putting into code the requirement now that you have to use the city trash card.
When you analyze this new process of collecting trash, what percentage of trash receptacles in the city will not be able to be picked up with the mechanical arm?
It's difficult to say.
Because I'm guessing 50%.
Well, I think that it's not so much whether or not they will be able to pick it up. It's going to come down more to, are they going to have to put a second person on that truck to pull those carts out to the curb?
Which, the whole point of the mechanical arm is not to have the second person.
That's right.
So that's the generation of my question. What percentage of the city are they not gonna benefit from having, even if they use the mechanical arm, they pull out the can and use it in the street? That's not my point. My point is that they would have to have a second person on the truck. My guesstimate is 50%.
It's a good question, and I think that Waste Management's response at this point is, we have to start the program, get those trucks in here, and they will learn where they can and can't use one person, one driver with a mechanical truck.
I mean, the reason I'm asking that question, in previous information that we've been provided, the additional expense in the contract, because it didn't cause the city to be able to spend less. The additional expense in the contract is so they can invest in the equipment. And now I'm wondering, are they actually even going to be able to use that equipment in half of the city? So I'd like to follow up on that. The second question I have is with commercial property. It doesn't say anything in here other than it gives you absolute authority to make a decision. What are the criteria and why aren't they in here as far as allowing commercial properties to be picked up by our contractor?
So the existing city code basically says commercial properties are exempt, and they define commercial properties as bigger retail, shopping, things like that is how it was defined before. We do have a small number, mainly downtown, we have a small number of small commercial properties that we have historically provided collection service to. And I think that the criteria on that is size of the facility, how much trash they're actually generating, because our program is mainly a residential collection program, and we don't want to be serving a hotel, or something that's bigger. I think that goes beyond the scope of what we're trying to do with our program. But there are small offices downtown, about 70 or 80 of them, where we do provide that service.
I mean, do we have anything in writing that makes sure that it's kind of a fair thing across the board? That it's not just subjective to, well, I like him, I'll let that happen?
I'm not following you.
I don't,
Based on Jim's verbal description, is any of that in writing?
We have policies in our department that cover some of that, but that may be something we need to go back and take a look at that specific policy.
I mean, I think that it could be something as simple as because we do have language in here clarifying that, well, I guess, adding, that commercial properties with 6 or more residential units require some approval for,
To get a different type.
to be able to use.
So that would be like a
Service as opposed to a
multifamily
private
housing.
pickup.
But to me, like, you could have something as simple as this.
No, I'm with you.
Let's take a bank, right? It doesn't produce a lot of trash on a weekly basis, but maybe you say, you know, if that commercial entity doesn't require the need for more than one tote, because these totes are large, you know what I mean? For service, then I think that they should be serviceable. But at the point that, you know, their tote is overflowing, you know, then clearly they need to get off the,
So there's an
Residential
example, there's
service.
one building, I won't mention names, but there's one building downtown that's got a dozen or so businesses in it. So a dozen or so totes hang out in the alley behind the building. And then, if not for the fact that nobody's
Yeah.
parking next to it, you wouldn't, you can't get through the alley. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around,
yeah, I don't think that should be the case.
well, it is.
I know,
That's
I'm
why
just saying,
asking
I
if
don't
there's
think
a
it should
Written
be.
policy, yeah, so, maybe we can take a look at that.
But if it's done in another manner, then the tab would be on them.
And
For
do they
private-
pay if they are-
For a private pickup, like a dumpster,
Yeah.
right?
But if we do
Which is
allow,
probably the reason why they've got the totes in the
trash
back,
cans
because
like
they
this,
don't
they
wanna
don't
have to
pay.
pay a private
Right.
garbage collection.
but they still pay the full rate. I mean, I know residential, it's subsidized because
Right.
they're city residents, and so commercial is paying the full cost of
Right.
how it, plus their overhead to make it happen and
Right.
whatever.
Do they pay a per
Okay.
unit rate? Or are they
For-
paying one customer for 12 totes?
They are paying 12 customers,
Okay.
12 units in that particular
In the same
example.
building.
Yeah.
Last quick question, and I'll try to make this real quick. So, city spent $1 million, federal
ARPA money.
ARPA money.
Yes, we did.
On new totes. Everybody got one.
Some got more than one if they need more than one.
In general,
That's my question.
In general,
Yeah.
everyone got one. What we tried to do by default is because everyone one 95-gallon tote.
Big one.
But there are certainly some townhouse developments and other situations where those big totes don't work. And we've been working on exchanging those. We've also had requests for additional totes at certain properties, just because they don't recycle, so they're generating a lot more trash than other properties.
So, I have one really quick question, and it's specific. My neighbor, who's 92, I mean, he's called in, he has a driveway, he cannot, I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty able-bodied person, you know, my kids definitely generate trash. It's a task to wheel that out, you know, to the edge of Virginia Avenue for me, for him to wheel it up and down that, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And so, how does the person go about calling in to get something of a smaller scale?
So they would call into the Hagerstown Recycles line, which is our hotline for
Are they
trash and
available
recycling.
now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, oh, you mean?
The totes?
The totes.
The
The smaller
The
totes?
little
Yes.
ones? Yeah.
We have,
Okay.
we have 95-gallon, 65-gallon, and 35-gallon
Alright.
totes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it just, because he generates like one little bag and he's putting, you know, in something that weighs
whole
200
thing.
And
Yeah.
pounds.
normally, his little bag just sits on the curb,
Yeah.
and they pick it
So-
up and throw it in the truck.
Well,
The
they're
thing-
changing. They're,
You can't put it back on.
Something we ran into at the Summerlin Manor development, which is townhouses, is a lot of single-car garages. They don't have space for a tote that's any bigger than a 35. So we ended up giving multiple small totes to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's all kinds of ways we can make it
Right.
Yeah.
work.
Okay.
It just takes time.
Can we, when we made the decision, can we just go back to that for a minute on why that decision with the trash and waste? I can't remember where I was, like, I can't remember how long ago, I don't know if I was sitting over there. But can we go back to that of why we made that decision to spend that money to get the totes? Because I think that's important for the public and definitely Councilmember Farini. I'm not sure if were you here at the table then? I don't think so. I think, yeah, I think that I was part of, so if we could just talk just briefly about that, why we felt as though we had to make the decision to purchase those totes.
So, and this was pre-Jim, the city engineer too, it was Rodney, but I think, as I remember this going down, we, in advance of us putting the last trash contract out to bid, we were talking with Waste Management, we were talking with other vendors, just to say, hey, we're gonna be putting this out. And they were giving us feedback that, the national trend is to move toward this automated collection. And we were told specifically by one of those vendors, if you don't get trash carts that we can pick up with Mechanical Arms, we're not gonna bid on your contract. And so I think that information was conveyed to the council at that time, and it seemed to fit with the ARPA funding. So I think that's why that decision was
When they
made.
came here, Waste
And that was why I
Management
wanted
was
to-
scared to talk about it.
And we didn't get any more bids, and that was the point I wanted to make, is that the bid that came in, we had to make a decision. Either we get totes because they were switching into a different type of truck and going down, to one staff or trying to do one staff. And so it was either spend ARPA funds and get everyone a tote, or, have to charge folks in some type of way for a tote. And that was what, Michelle, what you said?
Yeah.
That was the point I wanted to make, because there's a lot of that happening, especially social media, and people misunderstanding, thinking, oh, you guys bought the totes and now you're charging us for it, and that was not the case. Go ahead, Asha.
Well, I'm just saying, it didn't happen in a vacuum either.
No, it
And I've
didn't.
said it twice now, that was a bit of an offset to say, yes, we're going to keep recycling. Because it was clear
That
from
was
the
the case
vendors that
too.
were interested too, that, hey, if
No
you really,
recycling.
really want to keep recycling,
Yeah.
we can do it, but we're letting you know that there's no market for that.
Correct.
And therefore, no real interest from us to continue this. And if you want to do that, it's gonna be at a premium. You can offset some of that premium increase by going the tote on the trash side to sort of save, you know what I mean? Save on one, to offset some of that cost on the other. And we all agreed at this table, recycling was important, whether there was a cost benefit to the vendor or not.
And we didn't want to go every other week. I feel like
that
that
was
was
one
the
of
part
the-
too. That was it. It was like every
Yeah, I
other
mean,
week for
give up-
trash.
and give
And
up the
so-
downtown
I can't
toys.
recycle every
Yes.
other week.
Just from an anecdotal standpoint, I'll tell you, so
Thank
down in
you.
Ocean City, they went to the Arm with a single driver 2 years ago. But I also tell you that they pick up trash 3 times a week.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking the question of how many of the city residents are going to be in the situation where what they demanded of the city back then, that the mayor just described, isn't actually gonna happen. So when we get to that
got
point.
there yet. I don't think we got there yet. I think that we're just getting to where they're attempting to see how this will work out, if they'll even be able to go down to one person. But I don't know if I answered your question, but I would think that there would need to be like
yeah.
a time period where they need to see how this works out.
This could be interesting, see
Yeah,
if it works.
it is.
Okay.
There was not many decisions we had to
Yeah.
make at the table at the time, and so I just want to be clear on that.
Right. Keep going.
Is that all for trash?
That's, I think so, yes, that's all I have.
Where are we at? Meredith Park land and easement, oh man, so, okay.
So when Meredith Park was being designed, there was an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between the city and the Maryland Stadium Authority about how this was all going to go down. And that MOU basically said that the city was going to quit claim land where the cultural trail was to the Maryland Stadium Authority. And then once the trail was completed, that land would be conveyed back to the city. So there are actually 2 things that are going on with this memo. One is actually getting the deed for the cultural trail back, but it's also a separate easement agreement that covers a city storm drainage line that runs actually under the outfield, runs through the park that they couldn't really relocate. So we needed to have some sort of an agreement in case we ever would need to get back in there to maintain it. So that really is the purpose of this memo. It's accepting the land and accepting or entering into that easement agreement with the Maryland Stadium Authority.
That was good. Good.
Yes.
This is not gonna affect where you have to wind up putting a crosswalk, right? This won't
Jim
affect
will
that.
play left,
No.
right field for the,
Yes, I'm
for the
fine.
Buck Stars, when he needs to get to the drain.
All right,
Yes, I'm fine.
are we ready?
Yes.
All right, we'll move right along. Meredith Park, 2024 fireworks exemption.
Yeah, the Flying Boxcars have a list of dates when they would like to do fireworks displays at the stadium. By the city code, the noise ordinance, fireworks are allowed to be exempted, but it requires the city council to get their approval of that. And that's really all I'm asking for is approving their fireworks.
And we had to do the same for municipal when they set off fireworks, when the stops.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it exempts them from the timing restraint too, they go up to midnight.
And go up to midnight.
If it's a delay, they don't ever plan to get close to that.
So I just want to just make a note because a resident from Potomac Towers reached out to me about the fireworks, and I told them I would share their concern. So their concern is the number, 10 fireworks, that person said is a lot, when it comes to the noise that may impact their pets. So they also received a memo from Housing, reiterating the dates too. So I just want the body to know that the resident of Potomac Towers is concerned about the noise and their pets and the number of fireworks. So,
So, I have a question. Because all we have is, really is the memo at the moment, requesting the exemption. What recourse does the city have if things don't go well? And I don't know what that means at the moment, you know what I mean? But does this mean once we sign on to this, that we're guaranteeing all 10, but, let's just say the fire chief comes in and says, hey, I have an issue X, and we need to reconcile issue X before event number 2 or 3 or 7 or whatever occurs. Or, let's say, that there's a delay of an hour and a half, which is much different in expectation of the impacted resident. So all I'm asking is,
Yeah, I think that, I guess my understanding, without the benefit of the city attorney being here, is the council would have to come back and take an action to basically rescind that original approval, which then would put the exemption, would take the exemption away.
okay,
I think that's how it
Which
would.
we're gonna do an hour from now, and that's what's on the blue sheet.
okay.
How long will they last?
15, 20 minutes.
And is there a specified time frame?
I was about to ask.
I think it's after the game, which
Yeah.
whenever the game ends, there's not really a specified.
It's on the blue sheet.
Yeah,
So typically between.
Game started at 6:30, they're over at
8:30.
No,
like
that's just the dates.
8:45, 9
Well,
o'clock.
then the answer is no. There's
Should
no
be over
specified
by 9:30.
Yeah, it doesn't look like
on
it
most
specifies
nights.
on this menu at all, though.
Because I don't know what time the game
Memo
will be
or
over.
right.
Ordinance.
Is there a policy that says not after X
On,
time?
being that they're doing it on Friday nights, the noise ordinance goes into effect at 11 o'clock at night.
So they can't shoot off fireworks unless they're finished by 11 PM.
That's unless they're planned to finish. They can start, I think they can start up to 11
That's my
PM.
understanding too.
Yeah, it's start time up to 11 PM.
Are fireworks the same no matter if it's as far as the noise compared to when we have it at the fairgrounds to when it's being shot off from the field?
What-
They're saying,
Stadium, too.
What you see at Fairgrounds Park for 4th of July, those are larger
Yeah,
shells,
those are
which
larger.
are,
The
which
issue-
are
yeah.
louder.
louder.
Yes.
Okay, so there is a difference
But they
then.
also sometimes set off shells that are only noise, right? So they're the typical fireworks that you see, and then you see it shoot up and it just explodes for a loud bang.
Right. I don't think
I'm just telling Shelley
yeah,
that there's two
that's
types.
what happens at Fairgrounds Park when they do that. You just see, you see the flash of light. I don't recall municipal even, when they had the municipal even doing that, because you had South Cannon folks right there. I think these are just straight up fireworks, and then there's gonna be a pop at the end.
So, the answer to my question about the time was, you referred back to the ordinance, but the way the motion's written, it actually totally exempts them from the ordinance.
That's
So-
correct.
So we can't use the ordinance to say you can't shoot them off after 11 o'clock.
Right, and once they're in the tubes, right?
Once they're in the tube, they're in the tube. For example,
They need to
they were
go.
supposed to shoot them off Friday night,
Saturday.
Saturday night. And they made the decision before the game even started, they were not going to shoot off the fireworks, because once they put them in the tube,
They have to.
it's.
That's right,
then
then they
it's-
gotta go.
You can't disassemble them.
So that's kind of what happens, here. They may delay them, they just want to be able potentially to delay them and not take that extra fee that, you know.
Let me just ask a hypothetical then, given Councilwoman Burnett's conversation with a citizen. They start the game, there's a rain delay.
Right.
It goes into extra innings, all kinds of stuff happens, and they don't end until midnight, and the fireworks are in the tube.
I think that would be a conversation that the boxcars would consider not putting off that late at night. 11:30 at night. I can't, I mean, that would be a discussion to have with it. That certainly gives them
Should we
the
say
ability
something?
to do it.
Should we change this before we read it in the next session?
I'm just saying it should be reasonable to some degree to say should be concluded by midnight, or just something.
If you're gonna do that, well, by midnight, well, then it would have to be, because then that's within that daily time, within that 24 hours.
Well, that's true.
And this area is more dense with residents.
Sure.
I mean, Summit, right there, full of
Yeah.
homes. And I know Potomac Towers got a memo. These dates are already published on all the boxcars marketing. So
Yeah.
I know maybe South, or Summit residents have seen it, but has there been a letter? Like, hey, are you okay with this? If there's noises? I mean,
Is it
after.
commented?
I mean, but
I was hoping that they would have the fireworks on Saturday so we can see, you know, like for ourselves, and, because we were there to see like if that would really be.
Do you remember the Suns when they set off the fireworks? And, I mean, I didn't go to the game, but I would pull up there and watch the fireworks on those.
But we have Summit right
It
there.
just seems like it's such a
Right
more
there.
dense.
Exactly, it's more dense area.
I mean, again, this is
Well,
kind
if
of
you
already
remember, when they
done.
put the fireworks are gonna be put off inside the stadium, as opposed to municipal, they were outside the stadium in the parking lot where the basketball courts are. So they would have technically been just as close to South Cannon Street and all those homes back there as these are to either Potomac or Potomac Towers or Summit Avenue.
Where did they set off at the fairgrounds?
It's up near the dog park, well,
Yeah.
or up near the skate park.
In that dip.
For me, it's about time, not proximity.
Yeah, no,
I just-
100%.
Like, I
So,
think you
the
get to one in the
midnight
morning,
thing-
and something's wrong.
The midnight thing could come into play if this is reworded a little bit, because this motion has two parts. Approve the fireworks on these dates, and then the second part is that they are totally exempt from the ordinance. And I would say if we could modify the second part a little bit to say, on those dates, just
How about-
add that at the end, on those dates,
How-
I think that'll satisfy the after midnight issue.
Or how about this? How about we give them an exemption for their first time and see how that goes? And then come back the next, because,
Yeah, it'd have to be the first two times, because they're boom, boom.
okay, then the
14,
first two,
17.
that would give the first two, that gives you a good indication of what is happening. Now, there's gonna be pets freaking out. There's no doubt about it.
Pets, kids, elderly,
Yeah,
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
What happens on Jonathan when the
But it's
fairgrounds
all
is
part of
going off?
the-
I
yeah.
hear the same thing from folks that live on Jonathan.
Absolutely, 100%.
well, and who's to say that other fireworks don't start to take place too, like it does on every 4th of July?
I think though,
mean,
one
we
of the
just sit
reasons why
here
they're
and think
starting
of
the
all of
games
the-
early, one of the reasons why they're starting the games earlier instead of, because you remember, the Suns were 7:05 or 7:35. These are 6 and 6:30. So if all goes well, it's barely gonna even be dark when these fireworks go.
Yeah. What were you gonna say? You had a question?
I like his suggestion, that it's for the dates we specified.
The 2 dates.
Because that
Well,
by
I
itself
would be
is
okay with,
included.
I would be okay with
Okay.
these all 10 dates, if we had on those dates at the end of this
Right.
motion.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm good with that, because then it says, any after that, is not approved.
Because if you have a Taylor Swift concert, right, that's the goal, right? And,
see, but I would treat, I
and
would
they
think
have
these, we treat
fireworks,
those
that's,
different.
right, that's a different thing.
Yeah, we would
Because
treat
this
those different.
motion exempts them It's two different, it's one sentence with a comma and. So I'm gonna write that on my copy.
Yes.
I mean, no, you write it on your copy.
I mean, these are boxcar, these are boxcar events, these aren't like stadium.
I'm over it. Councilmember Schindler has a question for the previous thing on the agenda, Jim.
Okay.
If that's okay to go back, Jim, I'm sorry. The MOU with the Maryland Stadium Authority.
Yeah.
I had two questions on that. One is, this MOU, and forgive me, it's been a while, but when this was before me, but we discussed this once before, and that was that part of this MOU, I thought, was we had to make sure the cultural trail was put back to a satisfactory state, you know, or else there was compensation or something tied to that, right? Have we decided, or have you decided, or that the work done is satisfactory? I haven't heard that.
Yeah. So there are two parts of this. One involves Michelle and the bond council. Because the original cultural trail was partially funded by bond financing, a condition in the MOU was that when they relocated the cultural trail, it needed to be at least as long as the original trail, and it needed to be, I don't remember the specific language, but it needed to be of comparable, you know.
Amenities or something.
Right. As far as the quality of the construction, I'm very satisfied with that. I think they did a good job laying the trail in. It's, you know, it just ended up losing some of its character, in my opinion, just because you just don't have space to fit it in there. But it is still a continuous connection between City Park and really Washington Street.
And it's a little longer.
What happened to our big orange sculpture?
Still need a place to put it.
It's in storage.
If you notice that when we did the Clara Barton thing today, those seats and the shelters
They were nice.
are cultural,
Those were salvaged from where the Rise sculpture was when we
We
relocated
still
them
gotta
down
find
there.
where Rise can go.
Yeah, and the problem with Rise is just the size of it. It takes a space.
So I guess that was part of it, is once this is, you know, gone through, are we then saying, yes, we're okay with the work that was done? Like, does that lock us in, like, hey, you're off the hook, right?
Yeah,
Well, because we're taking it back.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
I
that's
think
what I
we're
wanna clarify
ours now.
after looking at this, like, are you okay? Like, are we okay as a body with that, saying like, hey, it's okay?
yeah. I mean, from an engineering standpoint, I'm fine with the construction that's there. The one thing that, now that it's built and you look at it, you realize there isn't much space for other amenities, like just benches or trash cans, because it's really hemmed in there between the fence of the stadium and the alley. So from that standpoint, we may not get some of those amenities back in there, but the trail itself, I feel comfortable with.
And then the only other thing is, there's a line in here, it says like, the trail is not, defined yet until,
Yeah. So what's going on with that is the Maryland Stadium Authority is actually working with the State Highway Administration. The State Highway Administration sends out surveyors to actually locate where the trail was built, and then they prepare a drawing or a plat that is going to be an exhibit that's attached to that. The problem was, coming to the end of the project, they made a couple slight tweaks down there near Baltimore Street with where it was connecting. And so the State Highway Administration has to come back out, survey exactly where did things end up, and then that's what they will convey to us. So there will be a drawing of that.
thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the safety things that are there. I walked the trail multiple times, and that crosswalk coming across kind of helps you stay on the path.
Yeah, I mean, it's a temporary thing that we're gonna continue to monitor. There are some other enhancements we're gonna do to it once we get our feet under us.
So
Thank you.
we have this for the next session and after a short break. Should we be doing that if you don't have the exhibit finished?
Well, I think that they have not recorded their deed to us. So really, until that happens, we have to take action. Part of this too is the Maryland Stadium Authority is trying to disassociate itself, get out from this project. And they want to convey the land that they had to the baseball stadium. And so we need to get these conveyances done before that happens.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right. We have opioid pharmacy benefit managers, PBM update, and that's.
This is simply permission to allow the attorney to include us in an amendment to the lawsuit that will add pharmacy benefit managers to the lawsuit. Basically, as part of the continued efforts to help remedy the effects of the opioid crisis in your community, a consortium has been investigating the role that pharmacy benefit managers played in contributing to the crisis. PBMs are companies who administer prescription drug plans for health insurers, self-insured employers, and governments to negotiate drug prices, availability with drug manufacturers, process and pay claims, review drug utilization, operate mail order pharmacies. An example would be Express Scripts or Optum RX. We're just looking for permission to add us to that lawsuit.
I'm a yes.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
Scott,
Oh,
does it
good.
come
I will
back as a
communicate that
resolution?
to the pool.
Do you have to do like a resolution or anything?
We've got it.
Okay.
We got it
Oh,
for
I
you.
see that, sorry. Thank you.
All right, we're adjourned for a brief break,
Yeah, it's a little bit.
right?
Yeah.
It's just brief, right?
Yep.
Is there any?
We just gotta
is
reset
there
the
any
room.
Is there any?